Chapter 3681. Yiqing Luo's brows moved as she glanced sideways at Zhu Wuaxian. Did you hear something? What? Zhu Wuaxian turned his head to look at her, not understanding the meaning of her words. This expression meant that he didn't hear anything. Strange, under such a clamorous atmosphere. Why did she seem to have heard the sound of something cracking? Surveying the surroundings, it seemed as though no one else had heard that cracking sound. What was that sound? Yiqing Luo's heart, because of that subtle sound, became even more apprehensive and uneasy. Lass, something's not right. I sensed a gush of intense yin qi. In her mind, old man Tsang's panicky and solemn voice rang. Yiqing Luo's breathing froze slightly. It seemed that the inexplicable feeling that had welled up in her heart was not an illusion. But really, something big was about to happen. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers clenched tightly. Where did that sound come from? What was it that made her feel uneasy and had a bad premonition? What was it? Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something as she abruptly raised her head and looked straight at the auction stage. If she didn't remember wrongly, it seemed to be when the auctioneer invited the bidders to observe the dragon egg from a close distance. Her heart seemed to have foreseen some danger as a strange feeling started to spread. Which meant to say, the problem was on the auction stage. What's the matter? Zhu Wuaxian noticed the change in Yiqing Luo's emotions, as well as her entire aura, had turned severe. What happened? Something happened. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as she replied with 3 words. Her gaze swept past the auction stage inch by inch. Just when she saw a spot, her pupils suddenly constricted. Oh no! Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as she looked at that spot in disbelief. Immediately after, without waiting for Zhu Wuaxian to ask, she had already stood up and with a leap, she stepped onto the railing. Leaping down from the 2nd floor, she rushed towards the auction stage. Quickly move aside. That's not a dragon egg. Following Yiqing Luo's words, a crack sound was heard. In the wooden box, that huge white egg suddenly cracked into pieces of eggshell. Then, a dragon head the size of a fist poked out from the top of the eggshell. The dragon's head was white, and the dragon horns on its head were like white jade, sparkling and translucent. It looked small and cute. Dragon. The dragon has hatched. Hurry, let the dragon see me. Beasts are very reliant on the first person they see. The young dragon is born. Quick! Snatch the young dragons. When the dragon head entered everyone's sight, everyone went crazy. Even the episode where Yiqing Luo suddenly rushed out and shouted, "That's not a dragon egg," was all thrown to the back of his head. One by one, they swarmed towards the dragon egg. Yiqing Luo's heart sank as she spoke out once again, "Don't go over, that's not a dragon." However, the frenzied crowd totally didn't listen to Yiqing Luo's words. He just wanted to rush to the front and be the first person the young dragon saw when it opened its eyes. As long as he was acknowledged by the young dragon. I don't care what price you bid. Now that the dragon whelp had acknowledged him, no one could snatch it away. Everyone had overlooked that auctioneer who was originally standing on the auction stage had no intention to stop everyone. Instead, he silently disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Whereas, in the midst of the crowd, that dragon head poked out, as it slowly opened its eyes. Chapter 3682. Behind him, someone was tearing at his body. Because of this, the wooden box kept shaking. The oval-shaped, half-broken dragon egg was swaying back and forth. The white dragon's head was also swaying back and forth. Just as the fingers of the city lord of Yen City were about to be torn off, the white dragon suddenly opened its eyes. At first glance, it met the eyes of the city lord of Yen City. The people of Yama Free City's city lord faction were so ecstatic that they almost screamed out loud. When the white dragon opened its eyes, the rest of the people rushed over in a frenzy. In the madness. Yet, no one noticed it. The dragon's entire body was snow white, but when it opened its eyes, they were as black as ink. Black and gloomy. It was so dark that not even a trace of reflection could be seen in those eyes. There was only endless darkness. The city lord of Yen City threw himself to the side of the wooden box in joy. The first thing it saw was me. It was me. None of you should fight for it. As he spoke, he reached out to the dragon egg. He saw the dragon's dark eyes staring at him. The city lord of Yen City was so excited that his palms were sweating. The people around him were still pushing and shoving. It was at this moment, when the city lord of Yen City's hand touched the white dragon's head, the white dragon suddenly opened its mouth and bit down on that person's hand. That person did not dodge. Instead, he was overjoyed. This was the beast race's contract method. However, in the next moment, that person's expression changed. He wanted to shake off the white dragon in fear. However, before he could make any reaction, Yizichin his entire person seemed to have aged in an instant. In the blink of an eye, only a set of clothes was left, fluttering to the ground. This scene caused the surrounding crowd to be stunned for a few breaths of time. What's going on? Where's the city lord of Yen City's representative? I was just grabbing him. Why did he suddenly? His clothes, these are his clothes. An unknown fear surged in everyone's heart. His excitement over the appearance of the young dragon slowly faded away as well. They did not have a chance to rest or search for answers. They did not have to look for him. Because, in the next instant, the answer to the disappearance of the representative of the city lord of No Yen City appeared on its own. While everyone was still in shock. The white dragon had left the eggshell at some point in time. The fist-sized dragon-shaped body looked very cute. But what it was doing was shocking. Ah, help! This dragon! Screams of pain resounded in the auction hall one after another. The white dragon quickly swam among the crowd. Whenever it saw someone, it would open its mouth and bite them. In just a few breaths, the person who was bitten was only left with a piece of clothing. The scariest thing was, when the white dragon bit a person, its body would gradually grow bigger. He watched as pieces of clothes fell to the ground. How could everyone not understand what was going on? That white dragon was a monster. A man-eating monster. Everyone frantically ran towards the entrance of the auction. Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly as she looked at the chaotic scene in front of her. Her line of sight quickly wandered around the surroundings. Finally, she locked onto a corner where 4 figures were trying to leave quietly. Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she speedily flew away. Chapter 3683. The executive elder's expression changed slightly. The expressions of the 2 hall masters darkened. Hall Master Lu was infuriated when he saw Yiqing Luo. If we don't leave, don't tell me we're waiting to be eaten by that monster. Aren't you the guards of the auction? Now that something has happened, you want to be the first to run. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she teased them. The 2 hall masters exchanged glances. Hall Master Ji coughed softly. We're just going to mobilize our men. We have to seal off the auction to prevent the monster from escaping and causing panic. Really? Yiqing Luo curled her lips into a smile which didn't look like a smile, with an obvious look of disbelief. Hall Master Ji coughed again. Of course it's true. Yiqing Luo looked at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Then, he put down his hand and moved away. Hall Master Ji. You're letting them leave just like that? Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu didn't have time to think about it. Looking at the chaos in the field, more and more clothes fell to the ground. They were no longer in the mood to investigate further. Directly bypassing Yiqing Luo, he ran towards the door. Seeing this, the executive elder also wanted to chase after him. Yiqing Luo smiled as she stretched out her hand to stop the both of them. They are going to mobilize their manpower, the both of you. Where are you going? The executive elder's expression froze. We are also going. You're going to mobilize people too. Wasn't the executive elder supposed to enforce the rules of the auction? Who's the person behind you? Yiqing Luo blinked her long eyelashes, pretending to be puzzled as she asked. Executive elder's face sunk as he was unable to reply Yiqing Luo's words. They might as well struggle free from Yiqing Luo's hands and couldn't be bothered to reply as they dashed towards the main entrance of the auction. However, he heard the young girl's mocking laughter behind him. Do you really think that you can really leave the auction venue? The executive elder stopped in his tracks. What does that mean? What do you mean, could they leave the auction? The executive elder suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of the door. The two hall masters rushed out of the main gate at full speed. But, in the next instant, the two of them reappeared in their line of sight. The two of them were obviously very surprised, and their expressions became extremely ugly. They clasped their hands tightly together and walked towards the crowded door again. However, they still returned to the auction venue. This scene stunned the executive elder as well. Their expressions congealed tightly, as though they had thought of something as all of them abruptly turned around and looked at Yiqing Luo. Do you know something? The girl leaned her shoulder against the wall, her veil fluttering in the wind, outlining a perfect curve. A pair of long and narrow eyes, languid and satisfied. He didn't look like he was in danger at all. Executive elders exchanged glances as they took quick steps towards Yiqing Luo. Earlier, before the dragon egg had cracked open, you shouted that it wasn't a dragon egg, that wasn't a dragon. Do you know, what is that thing? Yiqing Luo's expression changed slightly. Another elder asked, what's going on? Why can't we leave the auction? One could tell just by looking at the two hall masters. Trying to escape through the gate. After passing through the gate, he returned to the auction venue. It was like a ghost hitting a wall. Executive elder recalled the relationship between Yiqing Luo and Red Clear Pavilion as his expression turned grave. Did the pavilion master of Red Clear Pavilion tell you something? Chapter 3684. Miss D, this matter is extremely serious. If we don't settle this as soon as possible, the entire auction, no, to put it more accurately, everyone in the auction will be locked here. When the executive elder was saying this, his face turned extremely pale. Yiqing Luo nodded, looks like you've realized it. Yiqing Luo's words made the executive elder's face turn even more steely. You really knew what would happen? The executive elder's words attracted the surrounding panic-stricken crowd as they all looked over. After witnessing the white dragon opening its mouth and sucking a person dry, he wanted to escape, but he failed countless times. Everyone's hearts were filled with panic, irritation, and anxiety. Now that they suddenly heard the executive elder's words, the crowd seemed to have found a point to vent as they uniformly gathered around. Executive elder, what did you say? This lady, she knew all of this long ago. Right. Earlier before the white dragon came out from the eggshell, I heard her shouting that it's not a dragon egg. I heard it too. Initially when I saw her appear, I thought she was trying to create a scene because she wasn't able to get the first prize, so I specially took a few more glances. I also heard her shouting that it's not a dragon egg, that monster isn't a dragon at all. The crowd then started to recall Yiqing Luo's existence. Recalling what Yiqing Luo had said after she rushed down from the second floor's private room. How do you know that it's not a dragon egg? Did you already know all of this long ago? Or should I say, actually all of this was designed by you. Hearing the various large powerhouses cultivators, as they kept on berating her, Yiqing Luo started to laugh. Facing the crowd's accusations, even the expression on her face didn't change at all. She only glanced at the crowd lazily as she gave a smile which didn't look like a smile. What benefits do I get from scheming against you? I even included myself in the scheme. Do you think I'm silly? You just don't want to let the treasure gathering to lose the bet with Zhongqing exchange. So you intentionally. Before she could finish her words, she was interrupted by Yiqing Luo with a laugh. Looks like you're really quite silly. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes narrowed as a biting cold aura burst forth. She raised a finger. First, this thing was obtained by Zhongqing Trading House. It has nothing to do with me or treasure gathering. Then, he raised his second finger. Secondly, this thing, before it finally breaks out of its shell, the bidding price is 500 million crystals. According to the total amount of the two trading houses, the total amount of crystals that the Treasures Trading House has will not necessarily be lower than the Zhongqing Trading House. At this point, the girl's voice was clearly suppressed, revealing an irresistible coercion. Thirdly, I do not know what kind of monster this thing is. However, I am certain that it is not a dragon. At the most crucial moment, I did warn you, but none of you listened to me. Yiqing Luo slowly retracted her raised hand as her arms crossed over her chest. As she calmly glanced at the crowd in front of her, you've lost quite a number of elites, which can only mean that they are overly greedy. Everyone was so stunned by Yiqing Luo's frenzied rebuke that they didn't say a single word of rebuttal. Indeed. At that time, everyone wanted to be the first person the young dragon saw. Chapter 3685. They had no right to blame Yiqing Luo. All Luo, all Luo. Not far away, Pei Xing's worried voice was heard. Pei Xing, Qiao Yinyan and Old Lai hurriedly rushed towards her direction. Seeing that the three of them were fine, Yiqing Luo was relieved. Just as her lips curled up and walked towards them, a burst of exclamations rang around. Only to see that white dragon which had the size of an adult man rushing towards Pei Xing's direction with lightning speed. That white dragon's target was very obvious. Almost without any hesitation. The surrounding people were also frightened by this scene as they fled in all directions, for fear of being bitten by the white dragon. Ah, Xing, be careful. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed as she flipped her wrist and a flame feather fan leapt out from her fingertips. Following that, a beautiful wind blade pressed towards the white dragon. As this imposing manner pressed downwards, the wind blade exploded on the white dragon's body. The explosive sound shocked the surroundings. The crowd felt as though the ground they were standing on was shaking violently because of the explosion. Although Yiqing Luo's move was to force the white dragon away and quickly released her strength, but the profound energy which was gathered was obviously directed towards the white dragon. Following that, the young lady leapt. Her fiery red dress fluttered in the sky. Her dress fluttered in the wind like the tail of a phoenix spreading its wings, drawing a beautiful arc in the air. Just as Yiqing Luo made her move, Pei Xing also reacted as he swiftly dodged to the other side. Following that, he felt a strong gust of yin qi brushing past him. Although it didn't seep into his body, but he was pushed back a few steps by the remaining power of the yin qi. Qiao Yinyan was still shouting vigilantly beside his ear. Pei Xing didn't let his guard down just because he avoided the first wave of yin qi attack. He rolled on the ground and avoided it again. At the same time, Yiqing Luo had already leapt in front of him. The fingers holding the glower flame fan flicked quickly. Like an excited fairy, the most beautiful brilliance was blooming on her fingertips. Boom boom boom. The glower flame fan released the profound energy, like a hot knife through butter, directly towards the white dragon's face. The powerful pressure shocked the surroundings. The ground shook. Like a spiderweb, it spread out densely. Everyone hid very far away. They were afraid that if they were not careful, the white dragon would turn around and attack them again. Basically, those who were bitten by the white dragon would not have the strength to fight back. In an instant, they would be sucked dry by the white dragon. That lady, isn't she Lady D from the treasure-gathering sect? Isn't she a friend of that lord from the Red Clearness Pavilion? Doesn't she know that the monster is invulnerable? Profound energy attacks have no effect on that monster at all. I'm afraid that young lady's life is in danger. Why didn't the lord of the Red Clearness Pavilion help her? If that lord takes action, this monster will definitely be dealt with. Yiqing Luo was restraining the white dragon, and at the same time, she was filtering the important contents of the crowd's discussion, as she memorized it in her mind. Invulnerable. Impervious to fire and water. Could it be that her guess was right? Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo's expression turned grave. Bang! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground was heard. Thick black mist spread in all directions. The crowd only saw something being thrown out by a majestic force. The crowd shook their heads helplessly. Looks like that lord from the Red Clearness Pavilion really has no intention to take action. This young lady. Such a pity. That regretful tone had yet to finish. Chapter 3686. The black fog dispersed. The thing that flew out smashed heavily on the ground, creating a huge crater. And in that deep pit, it was an entirely white thing. White? Wasn't that the monster which looked like a white dragon? The thing which was sent flying was that white dragon monster. Everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them. Her attack is effective against that monster. The profound energy fluctuations on her, isn't that powerful? Why was she able to send that monster flying? What's going on? Did any of you see clearly what she did earlier? Everyone's hearts were filled with questions. Those present were basically from various main cities, various powerhouses. Naturally, their abilities were all above average. Because of this, Yiqing Luo's level of profound energy was considered normal among them. But, was this really normal? Their attacks and counterattacks had no effect on the white dragon monster at all. Yiqing Luo's attack was able to send that monster flying. When that monster, swaying its body, climbed out of the deep pit, that made everyone even more stunned. That monster swayed as it stood up. With a kacha sound, that jade-like white dragon horn on the top of its head directly broke off from its head. Half of the dragon horn hung on its head. It swayed for a few times. Finally, it still fell off from its head, dropping onto the ground. What made everyone's hair stand was, after the dragon horn was broken, but not a drop of blood was seen. That white monster totally didn't feel any pain. It totally didn't bother about the half of the dragon horn which had dropped on the ground. Roar! A deafening dragon roar came from the white monster's mouth. The white monster's figure, which was about the size of an adult man, suddenly leapt towards the sky. A spiraling dragon body instantly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Such a huge dragon covered the entire sky. It was a patch of gray. The surrounding scenery also became darker by a lot. Dragon. It's really a dragon. This dragon. What on earth is this dragon? What does it want to do? Everyone was extremely shocked. In their hearts, there was fear towards the white dragon, but also yearning. Yiqing Luo raised her head and looked at the hovering white dragon which covered the entire sky as her slender brows creased slightly. Then, his gaze fell on the ground, on the half of the dragon horn. However, she did not pay too much attention to the white dragon. Instead, he put away the glowing flame fan and slowly walked towards Pei Xing. "Ah Xing, are you alright?" Pei Xing's face was filled with shock as he looked at the white dragon which was circling in the sky, and then looked at Yiqing Luo in shock. You're the one who's alright. That's a real dragon." "No." Yiqing Luo shook her head with a grave expression. "I roughly know how this white dragon came to be. If I'm not mistaken, this thing is very difficult to deal with." Pei Xing did her best to calm herself down. Then, can we still walk out of the auction?" Pei Xing's question was exactly what everyone wanted to ask. The two executive elders were the closest to Yiqing Luo. He also heard Yiqing Luo denying that white dragon's identity and opened his mouth to ask, "You say that's not a dragon, then, what is that thing?" No matter how one looked at it, it was a dragon. Especially now, it was spiraling in midair. That mighty and domineering look was totally a dragon. But when they heard Di Luo say that it wasn't a dragon. Chapter 3687. Yiqing Luo replied with a question, "Do you believe me?" The executive elder was stunned. How were they supposed to answer this question? They didn't understand this young lady in front of them. How were they supposed to believe her? And this young lady's ability was probably not as good as theirs. Only when they looked at Yiqing Luo's calm face, there was an inexplicable feeling in their hearts. At this moment, those who were nearer to them had no time to dwell on this question. They looked in awe at the white dragon which was circling above their heads. Even though it had lost that pair of dragon horns, as a dragon's prestige, it still existed. Thinking of the terror of the white dragon, they had no other choice. They were almost choking with sobs. "We believe. We believe you. Miss D, we believe you. So, I beg you, please ask the people from Red Clear Pavilion to save us." Here, only Yiqing Luo's attack could cause harm to that monster. If they wanted to leave this place alive, they could only rely on Yiqing Luo. The commotion over here naturally attracted the attention of the hall masters beside them. Hall Master Lu squinted his lively and adorable eyes as the expression on his face was very cold. "If you want us to believe you, shouldn't you first take out the capital to make us believe you? At the very least, you have to tell me, what exactly is that monster?" Yiqing Luo looked at Hall Master Lu calmly as her emotions were very indifferent. "If you don't believe me, even if I tell you what that monster is, you won't believe me." Everyone looked at each other in dismay. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Just at this moment, the silent executive elder suddenly opened his mouth. "We believe you." The two hall masters frowned as they looked at the executive elder. Their mouths moved, but in the end, they didn't say anything. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as her long and narrow eyes curled into a sinister arc. She slowly raised her head and looked at the white monster in the sky. Following that, she slowly looked at the surrounding crowd. Finally her gaze fixed on a corner. "How long does Without Embroiling City's mysterious maiden intend to hide for?" Everyone was waiting for Yiqing Luo's reply. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, many pairs of eyes turned in the direction of the corner in unison. Without Embroiling City's mysterious maiden. Xiao Yulu. What did she mean by mentioning Princess Yulu at this time? Under everyone's gaze, a slender figure slowly walked out from the darkness. The woman was dressed in white and had a graceful bearing. A confident and flamboyant smile hung on her beautiful face. She just stood there, looking down at everyone with a superior attitude. Princess Yulu. Xiao Yinyan's heart sank as he looked at the imposing woman before him. A sense of unease welled up in everyone's hearts. He seemed to have guessed something, but he couldn't believe it. Yiqing Luo looked at Xiao Yulu indifferently as she said word by word, "Just as what you think, that monster was brought by Without Embroiling City's mysterious maiden." As soon as these words came out, it caused a huge commotion. Everyone looked at Xiao Yulu in disbelief. Why? Princess Yulu wants to do such a thing. This is without embroiling city. If she ruins the auction, wouldn't without embroiling city be the one to suffer? What's in it for her? Listening to everyone's doubtful discussion, Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. This must be the celebrity effect. Because Xiao Yulu was mysterious maiden. So even in her heart, she guessed that this matter had something to do with Xiao Yulu. Chapter 3688. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as her lips curled upwards, giving a sarcastic smile. If I didn't guess wrongly, to cause such a consequence, mysterious maiden, you yourself should be very flustered, right? She asked each and every word. Her tone rose slightly. As expected. After Yiqing Luo's words were questioned, Xiao Yulu's arrogant face froze for a moment. Her beautiful eyes flickered as she suppressed the fluster in her heart, maintaining her voice to be more dignified. The dragon egg is indeed the auction item that Zhongqing Trading House had spent a lot of effort to obtain. As you said, I am also very shocked to cause such a consequence, because I don't know anything at all. No. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. You're shocked, not because you don't know anything, but because you're merely being used by those people once again. She tilted her head, her black hair spread behind her back, contrasting with that blazing red dress. It was dazzling and moving. She smiled as her eyes were filled with ridicule. You really don't learn to be obedient, time and time again, being used by the same group of people. This is the first time I've seen such a dumb person like you. You. Xiao Yulu's smile could not be maintained as she clenched her fists tightly. I'm not cheated. Although Zhongqing has some responsibility for this matter, but don't think of pushing all the responsibility onto me. Don't be in a hurry to deny or refute. Yiqing Luo's smile remained unchanged. The person behind you, I'm afraid his motive is not just to deal with me. She paused as her gaze swept across the crowd. Could it be that until now, everyone still hasn't discovered the most important danger? Everyone's hair stood on end from Yiqing Luo's question. One by one, they looked around, surveying the surroundings. Some of them stared at the white dragon monster which was hovering in the sky. Other than letting out a dragon roar from time to time, there was no movement at all. Suddenly, a cry of alarm was heard. Oh no! We've fallen into a trap. Fallen into a trap? What on earth? Everyone was puzzled. Yiqing Luo also looked towards the direction of the voice. She had not expected that the first person to discover the abnormality of the auction was actually someone she knew. The people standing in that direction formed a group, about 12 to 13 people. They were dressed in green and black attire. The blood-colored flower embroidered on the sleeve was very eye-catching. Weren't those people the members of the Bloody Mercenaries? The person who spoke just now was Bloody Mercenary Group's vice leader, Bo Songyi. Following behind them were a few of the team members whom he had met at the West Cliff Mountain. However, Su Qingbingbin was not there. The person who spoke was the vice leader of the Bloody Mercenary Group, who was ranked second. When everyone asked the question, their tone was rather polite. Facing the crowd's questions, Bo Songyi ignored him. Instead, he walked straight towards Yiqing Luo. You've already seen through it, right? Yiqing Luo smiled without saying a word. Bo Songyi's handsome face immediately turned into a bowl. He pursed his lips tightly. After a long time, he looked at Pei Xing and clenched his fists. Fortunately, Zishi didn't follow us in. Pei Xing felt as if his heart was being violently strangled by that gaze. He lowered his head and avoided eye contact with Bo Songyi. What's going on? Don't keep us guessing. Look at the time. We need to unite. That monster might be resting now. What if it starts to suck people again after it has rested enough? Chapter 3689. Yiqing Luo looked at the crowd, her face was filled with fear. The sneer at the corner of his mouth deepened. Her lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. Haven't you discovered? Today's auction is nothing but a scheme. The auction will gather representatives from the 3 main cities of the Earth realm and various powerhouses to take part in it. The people present are all considered as the top figures of the various powerhouses, and are also the core of the various powerhouses. If anything happens to you, it should have a huge impact on the powerhouses behind you, right? When the crowd heard that, they were shocked. At this moment, they finally understood the meaning behind Yiqing Luo's words. In the auction, there were representatives from various powerhouses from various main cities. And they were trapped in the auction, unable to leave this place. And there was a monster which was impervious to swords and spears, water and fire, eyeing them covetously. If they were not careful, they might become the food in that monster's stomach. 3 main cities, various powerhouses' elite representatives, were trapped in the auction, and faced with the danger of losing their lives. If they were all annihilated. Not to mention that their powerhouses would be greatly affected. The entire Earth domain was probably going to experience an earth-shattering change. What on earth was this for? Why did they have to be trapped in the auction? Were they trying to make use of them to achieve some goal? Or to catch them all in one go, causing chaos in the Earth realm? After the crowd regained their senses, they instantly became vigilant. All of them looked around in astonishment. There were some who continued to trying to walk out of the auction. But time after time, they returned to the original spot like ghosts hitting the wall. Everyone's heart, bit by bit, sank to the bottom. The atmosphere was terrifyingly gloomy. Some of the outer city powerhouses, tensed up, stared at Xiao Yulu. It's you. It's you, right? The dragon egg is the auction item of your Zhongqing exchange. You're the one who brought the dragon egg, what motive do you have? One of them took the lead to question. The others immediately shifted their gazes onto Xiao Yulu. All of their eyes were scarlet red, as though they had grabbed onto the only hope in a difficult situation. Some of them couldn't be bothered about Xiao Yulu's mysterious maiden identity, as they rushed up to detain Xiao Yulu. Presumptuous. Xiao Yulu's expression was dignified, as she shouted angrily, "You dare to touch me." Now, Xiao Yulu was arrogant. This caused the expressions of the people from the various superpowers to turn extremely ugly. What's your purpose? Why did you use the dragon egg to trap us in the auction? Xiao Yulu. Here, you are no longer the Empyrean fairy. If you don't let us out, we'll kill you first. Everyone had been forced into a corner. After all, so many people had died. They were all sucked dry by the monster, leaving behind only a set of clothes. No one wants to become like that. Moreover, if Xiao Yulu had planned all of this from the very beginning, then they had traveled thousands of miles to participate in this auction. It was like a sheep walking into a tiger's den, walking into a trap. Perhaps there was a deeper conspiracy behind all of this. The more they thought about it, the more they imagined what would happen next. The more he thought about it, the more panicked he became. No one knew what would happen in the next instant. No one knew when the monster hovering in the sky would launch another attack. Chapter 3690. Ever since Xiao Yulu was born, she had always been surrounded by the stars as she grew up. Good family background. Excellent genes created her top-notch innate talent. Later on, Linglong Palace took a liking to her and nurtured her to become mysterious maiden. Since young, Xiao Yulu had never suffered any setbacks. Many things which were extremely difficult for others to do, she could do it easily. So she had never been treated in such a manner like today. In front of her, those people who were smiling amiably and fawning over her earlier were now looking at her with a furious expression as they spoke harshly. There were even people who directly took action. All their emotions were directed at her. Xiao Yulu's chest was heaving up and down violently. The anger in her eyes kept surging. Earlier she had applied the beautifying cream on her face which had regained its original beauty. Under the contortion, it started to hurt faintly. She tried her best to control the anger in her chest. She slowly raised her hand and her slender fingers gently caressed her face. This was to prevent his face from being ruined like before. Her pair of beautiful eyes were tainted with a cold frost, like floating ice, as she stared at Yiqing Luo with hatred and treachery. The humiliation that she was suffering now. It was all because of this slut. Ever since she met this slut, her smooth sailing life had disappeared. This slut was simply the bane of her existence. If it wasn't for Luo, how could she possibly be cheated by that bunch of black-robed men? How could she have fallen to such a state where even she herself didn't know what to do? Right. That's right. She indeed didn't know what to do. If she knew how to leave the auction, long before the white dragon mutated, she would have escaped. How could she possibly wait till now? Xiao Yulu had always thought that that bunch of black-robed men were Luo's enemies. But due to the Underworld Palace's power, she didn't dare to take action personally. So she secretly helped her, hoping that she could deal with Luo. She thought that the black-robed men passed this dragon egg to her so that she could win the bet with Luo. But, until the white dragon mutated and sucked all those people dry. She then understood. That bunch of black-robed men's target wasn't just Yiqing Luo, and without embroiling city. More importantly, the entire land. Xiao Yulu was able to stand out in the Linglong Hall and become without embroiling city's Empyrean lady. She was no fool. After everything that had happened, he connected it to Luo's speculation. She could roughly guess the purpose of the group of black-robed men with just a little thought. It had already come to this, she could only rely on herself now. If the ambition of those men in black was really that great. As the hero, it was very likely that she would get a share of the benefits. Upon having this thought, Xiao Yulu's eyes flickered, as if her face was covered in a layer of ice. Suddenly, her red lips curled up, and her aura was imposing. She directly walked past the people who blocked her way and spoke harshly. His gaze was directed directly at Yiqing Luo. Luo, you keep saying that you're trying to push all the blame onto me. I can't help but suspect your motives. Xiao Yulu raised an eyebrow and sneered, I feel that you're jealous that I found the dragon egg, and you're worried that the Sincerity Trading House will win the most honor in this auction, so you lost the bet between us. Chapter 3691. The more she spoke, the colder and more imposing Xiao Yulu's voice became. Right from the start, I felt that you were very strange. I couldn't find you at all, but you suddenly appeared in Without Embroiling City, and targeted me several times, stirring up trouble in Without Embroiling City. You even bought over the citizens of Without Embroiling City, creating public opinion, making the citizens lose their loyalty to me, and step by step, trying to ruin my reputation. Xiao Yulu's eyes turned cold. I have always been curious, what is your intention in coming to Without Embroiling City, and what is your motive? Now, this Empress finally understands. She raised her arm and pointed at Yiqing Luo. Her voice became even more powerful. From what I see, this is obviously a conspiracy between you and the Hell Palace. Xiao Yulu's speech immediately made the scales in many people's hearts start to tilt. After all, Xiao Yulu was Without Embroiling City's mysterious fairy. Moreover, Xiao Yulu's tone was so sonorous and powerful. No matter how you listened, it didn't sound like a lie. Looking at the crowd's expression, because of her words, there were some changes. Xiao Yulu then raised her brows complacently as she looked at Yiqing Luo arrogantly, speaking out word by word, "This empress isn't like you, with just words without any proof. The evidence that this empress has brought out is... When the dragon egg changed, it was precisely when you jumped down from the cabin." When she said this, if there were many people who believed in Yiqing Luo's suspicions before. But now, the evidence that Xiao Yulu said, made people have no choice but to doubt Yiqing Luo. Indeed. It was when Yiqing Luo jumped down from the second floor, shouting something. The dragon egg cracked open. If at that time, Yiqing Luo had done something, making the dragon egg hatch prematurely, and then mutate, resulting in the current situation, it was not impossible. What nonsense are you talking about? Fu. Misty's conspiracy. What conspiracy do I want to plot? Do I need to plot? Listening to Xiao Yulu's words, Lao Lai immediately exploded. He rolled up his sleeves, that horrifying face with blood scars, looked extremely sinister. "I tell you, if I want to kill you, I will directly fight my way to your door. I don't have the leisure to scheme against this and that." Then, he pointed at Xiao Yulu and said angrily, "Little girl, don't try to slander the underworld palace. If you have the guts to slander the underworld palace, then you should have the guts to bear the consequences." He had to admit it. Old Lai was indeed like a lunatic. Especially now. He pointed at Xiao Yulu fiercely. It scared those cultivators who originally wanted to surround Yiqing Luo, so much that they moved a few steps to the side. Xiao Yulu's face paled slightly. She forcefully suppressed the fear in her heart and raised her chin. "Senior from the underworld palace, can this queen understand that you are angry from embarrassment? In any case, being trapped in the auction, it was uncertain when he would be able to leave. The people from the underworld palace wouldn't be able to make it in time." Thinking of this, when Xiao Yulu looked at Lao Lai, there was no longer any fear. "To hell with your mother's shame." Lao Lai's temper flared up. He waved his fists and rushed toward Xiao Yulu. Old Lai. Yiqing Luo looked at the scene which had gone out of control as she sighed and called out to Old Lai. Old Lai's body turned stiff. When he turned his head to look at Yiqing Luo, the muscles on his body were still tensed up. Yiqing Luo shook her head at him. Old Lai clenched his fists. Chapter 3692. Yiqing Luo walked up and pulled Old Lai's arm. She patted his shoulder lightly. At this moment, the more irritable Old Lai was, or if he made a move, it would only prove Xiao Yulu's words. The surrounding people from the various powerhouses were all out of their wits. The misunderstanding was blown up. At this juncture, it would be very troublesome. This was no longer a problem which could be solved by killing Xiao Yulu. Old Lai was pulled back by her. Yiqing Luo smiled at him. "I will prove for you that this matter has nothing to do with the Hell Palace." Old Lai shook off her hand and rolled his eyes at her. "Do I need any proof? The Hell Palace originally didn't have any reputation, so I'm not afraid of being blackened further. I'm just angry that a young lass dared to splash dirty water on the Hell Palace. Her desire to live is very strong, and if she doesn't want to die here, she can only choose to cooperate with the mastermind's plan." Yiqing Luo naturally saw through Xiao Yulu's plan. She raised her eyes slightly and glanced sideways at Xiao Yulu. Her eyes were slightly cold. "Even if we catch Xiao Yulu for questioning, we won't be able to get anything out of her. And that monster, I'm afraid it's waiting for someone." Miss D. The executive elder's voice was heard. "Are you really the instigator?" His voice was filled with uncertainty and hesitation. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as her lips curled into a smile, seemingly ridiculing. "Do you still remember the question I asked you earlier?" The two executive elders were stunned as they frowned. When they asked Yiqing Luo if she already knew everything, Yiqing Luo asked them if they believed her. So, Yiqing Luo's meaning was, if they chose to believe her, then don't ask. If they didn't, even if she answered them, they wouldn't believe her. The executive elder was instantly in a dilemma. Suddenly, one of the executive elder clenched his fists. Miss D, I believe you. You. The other executive elder looked at that person in shock as he opened his mouth and sighed deeply. Rather than believe without embroiling city's mysterious maiden, I'd rather choose to believe you. She has the red clear pavilion behind her. Perhaps the mutation of the dragon egg was caused by her and the people from the red clear pavilion. Behind him, Hall Master Lu couldn't help but mock when he heard the words of the two executive elders. The power of the red clear pavilion is so mysterious. I heard that the pavilion master is one of the strongest experts in the heaven realm. Hall Master Ji coldly said. I heard that even in the heaven realm, it is rare to hear any news about the red clear pavilion. However, the red clear pavilion just had to appear in such a flamboyant manner at the Earth Realm's auction conference. Her gaze looked straight at Yiqing Luo. From what I see, red clear pavilion's people are trying to expand their own ambitions, so they're starting from the Earth domain. The executive elder's expression changed again. But very quickly, they still stood firmly behind Yiqing Luo and the others. Executive Elder A, every realm has its own rules. If the red clear pavilion really wanted to develop their own ambitions, they would definitely not start from the Earth realm. Executive Elder B, if this matter is really related to without embroiling city's mysterious maiden, then your Linglong Palace can't escape from this. If you have the energy to gossip here, you might as well investigate the truth as soon as possible. The two executive elders' words hit the Hall Master's words harshly. They even took the chance to drag the Linglong Palace into this. Chapter 3693. Pfft! A light laugh interrupted the Hall Master's angry bellows. Yiqing Luo's eyes curved into crescents as her eyes were filled with ridicule, which means to say, both Hall Masters actually don't really believe in mysterious fairy. Hall Master Lu's distinct big eyes flashed a chilly glint. Yiqing Luo raised her fair hand and held her lower jaw as she smiled. In a while, you'll say that I've allied with the Underworld Palace to destroy the Earth Realm, to fulfill my ambition. In a while, it'll become me allying with the Red Clear Pavilion. TSK. Before you start spreading rumors, can't you first check the reason for spreading rumors? Allying with this, allying with that. Her voice paused for a moment. Suddenly she lowered her voice and revealed a trace of treacherous coercion. Aren't you afraid that? With such a plot, not only will you offend the Underworld Palace, you'll also offend the Red Clear Pavilion? Yiqing Luo was saying that, while taking a step forward. That shocked the two Hall Masters so much that their expressions changed as they staggered and retreated a few steps in a disheveled state. Until they almost knocked into someone else. They then stabilized themselves. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as her brows were still filled with smiles. Surely you don't really think that that person in the Red Clear Pavilion is no longer around, right? Looking at Yiqing Luo's eyes, the crafty smile was flickering. The two Hall Masters' hearts suddenly trembled. Their gazes swiftly swept across the surroundings. Deeply afraid that what they said earlier would fall into the ears of the people in the Red Clear Pavilion. The two of them felt guilty and naturally didn't dare to find trouble with Yiqing Luo. Executive Elder A seemed as though he had heard some good news as his eyes lit up. Miss D, that sir in the Red Clear Pavilion, is he really still around? Can we ask that sir to help us resolve this calamity? Executive Elder B asked. The two elders' eyes were filled with hope. Yiqing Luo hadn't said a word. It was Bo Songyi who opened his mouth as he explained on her behalf. The person behind sealed our various powerhouses people in the auction, so they should have long made preparations. I'm afraid that the person behind really wants to make use of this, to take action on the Earth realm. To dare to use such a method to take action in the Earth realm, that also means that the person behind isn't afraid of the balance historian's arrival. As everyone knew, in order for every realm to develop in a balanced manner, the power suppression between realms was very strict. For example, the white dragon monster ate humans and sealed off the 3 main cities of the land. This had completely violated the balance of the land. The reason why the mastermind isn't afraid of the historian of balance is because he's already prepared for this. Either that, or the opponent has nothing to fear. Chapter 3694. The executive elder was choked by Yiqing Luo's words and couldn't say a word. If everyone is willing to unite, perhaps there will be a chance of survival. Yiqing Luo continued. The executive elder looked at the young lady in front of him. He couldn't describe the feeling in his heart. Obviously, this young lady was not considered as a top figure in this place. Compared to her, there were plenty of people who were stronger. But this young lady had a kind of magical power that made people want to believe in her. Especially when they met with the young lady's deep black eyes without a trace of luster. Their hearts seemed to have been bewitched. Yiqing Luo didn't wait for their reply, her figure suddenly moved and jumped onto the eaves. It looked like she was getting closer to the white dragon monster in the sky. Ah, Luo. Pei Xing called her name worriedly, his brows knitted tightly. Xiao Yinyan's expression was also tense, his eyes looked at her without blinking. Yiqing Luo's actions made quite a number of people cast their gazes over. Coincidentally, the white dragon monster was tumbling in mid-air, circling and roaring. That huge sharp claw just happened to be standing on top of Yiqing Luo's head, looking up at the angle of the eaves. It looked like Yiqing Luo was about to be scratched to death by that white dragon's claw. Everyone's heart was tightly in their throats. They were completely unable to understand the purpose of Yiqing Luo's action. Under the various gazes of the crowd, the young lady stood there calmly. Between her long and narrow charming eyes, there was a trace of faint flowing light. Treacherous and deep, exuding a dangerous aura. Suddenly, her eyes flashed. The whole person's aura suddenly became fierce. Her red sleeves danced with her fingertips. Just like, from the flame, a section of fair green lotus root was revealed. Slender white fingertips, holding a flame feather fan. She flicked her fingers and the feather fan was like a ball of raging flame. Boom! A strong explosive sound exploded in the air. In a split second, the sky seemed to be dyed red. Like blood red, it covered everyone's eyes. What is she trying to do? Does she want to fight with that monster face to face? Is she crazy? If we anger that monster, none of us can escape. All sorts of voices of shock and complaints rose and fell one after another. Everyone was suppressing fear and negative emotions in their hearts. At this moment, they could not help but let it out. But, in the next instant, everyone's complaints were stuck in their throats. On the eaves, the young girl dashed towards a certain direction within the blazing red light. Still want to run? The young girl's chilly voice was like pearls and jade falling onto a plate, yet it revealed a sense of alienation and coldness that made others unable to approach her. The girl moved as fast as lightning. It was like a sharp blade. He charged straight in that direction. He stretched out his hand. He grabbed someone's shoulder. That person was obviously still surprised that he had been discovered. With a flip of his hand, he broke free from Yiqing Luo's grip and quickly escaped. The corners of Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as the glower flame fan in her hand flickered with a seductive red glow. She moved her fingers. The dark force was like a wind blade. It wrapped around the man. Seeing that the situation was not good, the man struck out with his palm and quickly moved away. Yiqing Luo flipped a few times in mid-air and avoided the surging palm wind. Her vision brushed past the executive elder. The moment their eyes met, the executive elder seemed to have understood something. Chapter 3695. Oldby was still shouting out his slogan, "Everyone, no matter who is responsible for today's matter, our only aim is to leave the auction. To walk out of this sealed space. So what we need to do now is to unite and face the external threat together. After our lives are secured, then we can continue to ferret out the mastermind behind this, to find out who is it." The executive elder's words were subtly informing everyone. Even if they still suspected Yiqing Luo. But at this juncture, everyone could only let go of the grudge in their hearts. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Many of them were still hesitating on the spot. But some felt that what the executive elder said was very reasonable. Thinking of Yiqing Luo's earlier actions. And that man who was running away. The few of them reacted swiftly and chased up. There were also people who immediately went to stop that man. A group of people joined hands and in just a moment, they had already intercepted that man. That man's eyes were filled with murderous intent. His face was extremely distorted. His mouth gave out a roar similar to a wild beast. Following that, he bared his fangs and brandished his claws as he attacked the people surrounding him. Everyone felt strange and were about to retaliate. Following that, a red shadow flashed past. The young lady's leg flew up and kicked that man's back fiercely. That man didn't even make a sound. He fell straight onto the ground. Everyone immediately took a few steps back. All of them stared vigilantly at the man who had fallen on the ground. "Miss D, who is he? Why do you want to capture him? Don't tell me that the monster is caused by this man." Everyone asked in puzzlement. Yiqing Luo patted her sleeves and slowly walked towards that man who was lying on the ground. The surrounding people subconsciously moved to the two sides, opening up a path. Yiqing Luo walked to that man's side and raised her leg, giving that man a kick. That man didn't move an inch. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly and was about to exert force. Suddenly, a ridiculing laughter was heard, deliberately mystifying. "Are you trying to find someone to take the blame? That man has already been beaten to death by you, and then with the dead leaving no evidence, you can fabricate anything you want." Xiao Yulu sneered as her red lips curled upwards, proudly crossing her chest. "Di Luo, what are you still trying to struggle for?" Yiqing Luo glanced at her faintly and following that, she exerted strength with her feet, flipping the unmoving person over. She said calmly, "Take a good look at who he is." Everyone was curious, so they squeezed forward to take a look. When he saw the face clearly, everyone's expression changed drastically. "Auctioneer. How could it be him? Why did he, could it be that all of this was caused by the auctioneer?" When the crowd saw that familiar face, all sorts of guesses started popping up in their hearts. Yes. Don't forget, when it came to the last item, the auctioneer's behavior was obviously different from before. He kept persuading us to raise the price and bid for the dragon egg. In the end, it was still him who wanted us to observe the dragon egg up close. It was because we got close to the dragon egg that it broke and released that monster. Right. Did you notice another detail? After the dragon egg hatched, he ran faster than anyone else. It's obvious that it's not a dragon inside the egg, but a monster. One of them said. 10,000 people agreed. The crowd instantly felt their hearts palpitating. The more they thought about it, the more terrified they felt. No matter who the person behind the dragon egg was. Chapter 3696. Who knows? Could it be that she saw that the matter was exposed and used her accomplice, the auctioneer, to take the blame? Xiao Yulu snorted coldly. In any case, the dead cannot testify. This empress doesn't believe you. Yiqing Luo chuckled and shot a glance at her disapprovingly. I don't need your trust. Then, he paused. Yiqing Luo burst out laughing again, as her long and narrow eyes curved, filled with ridicule. You'd better think carefully on how to gain that bunch of people's trust. Don't forget, that time in West Cliff Mountain, that bunch of people totally didn't consider your life. This time around, are you sure that those people will consider letting you leave the auction hall alive? Will the monster in the sky really not attack you? Yiqing Luo's every question was emphasized. Like a hammer, it hit Xiao Yulu's heart heavily. Xiao Yulu subconsciously thought of the soul-devouring formation in the West Cliff Mountain. The pain of being devoured by those evil spirits. There was also the pain of being disfigured. Her delicate body trembled uncontrollably. There was also a trace of fear on his face. She shook her head, her eyes were slightly red as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. I don't know what you're talking about. Yiqing Luo smiled without saying a word. Bo Songyi and the others also gathered around her. Miss D, the auctioneer is dead. I'm afraid that the clue has been broken. What should we do next? Don't tell me, we have to start with that monster. Qiao Yinyan looked up at the white dragon with a solemn expression. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly, since the other party had long used the auction as bait, intending to wipe out all the powerhouses in the Earth domain in one fell swoop. Naturally, they have made full preparations. The girl's smile made everyone stunned for a moment. You mean? Qiao Yinyan lowered his gaze and looked at the person lying on the ground. Yiqing Luo's brows rose tightly as she slowly lowered her eyes. She curled her lips into a seductive smile. Then, he bent down. The foot that was stepping on the auctioneer's chest increased in strength as he bent over. The auctioneer who was lying on the ground looked dead. There was no reaction from Yiqing Luo's increased strength. The crowd around them whispered to each other. It was obvious that he didn't trust Yiqing Luo. After Yiqing Luo bent over, she maintained this position. She smiled wickedly, like a female playboy. If you plan to let me slaughter you, I don't mind turning you into a dismembered corpse. Her voice was clear and sweet, and her tone was calm. It didn't sound like he was saying anything dangerous at all. A complete corpse or a corpse that's turned into minced meat. Which do you prefer? Her voice was loud. The people around him couldn't help but rub their arms. This girl, she looked young, gentle, and charming. How could they be so bloody and cruel? Not even sparing the corpses. This was the rhythm of whipping a corpse. Everyone's gaze towards Yiqing Luo had some subtle changes. Everyone was pointing at him. Yiqing Luo totally didn't put it to heart. She just quietly looked at the auctioneer beneath her feet as she said word by word, "Don't doubt my ability. Even that monster, I can injure it till it's unable to regenerate itself. Do you think this not considered a successful experiment can regenerate itself in my hands?" She laughed lightly. His laughter carried a treacherous coldness that caused one to be terrified. For words were spat out silently from her lips. Chapter 3697. He's already dead and you're still putting on an act. Who are you trying to show? The more you act, the more fake you look. I think Princess Yulu is right. You were the mastermind behind all of this. Di Luo. What motive do you have? Trapping us in the auction. Don't tell me you really want to join forces with other forces to control the Earth domain. Seeing Yiqing Luo still talking to a corpse. Everyone felt that it was ridiculous. That auctioneer was obviously kicked to death by Yiqing Luo earlier. Even now, he was still putting on an act and chatting with a corpse. Did she treat them as fools? The more Yiqing Luo acted in this way. On the contrary, they started to suspect Yiqing Luo even more. That white dragon monster is definitely created by her. Let's catch her first. Then we'll force her to tell us the way to leave the auction. That's right. Catch her first. We can't let her escape. The crowd swarmed forward, intending to catch Yiqing Luo. At the same time, the crowd suddenly felt a burst of dense and overbearing profound energy suddenly spreading in the air. The vast aura made the entire space felt oppressive. Following that, everyone was shocked by that powerful aura as they retreated a few steps. Swoosh, a slight sound was heard. The crowd saw the auctioneer, who was originally lying on the ground like a corpse, actually stood up straight. And this vigorous energy was being emitted from his body. Everyone's heart trembled in shock. What was going on? Why? The dead auctioneer suddenly came back to life. And that energy which had far exceeded their imagination, where did it come from? They had participated in the auction for so many years. This was the first time they found out that the auctioneer who had been hosting the auction for them had such a powerful ability. This profound energy was overbearing and terrifying. It was emitted in the air. Unknowingly, it gave one an extremely oppressive feeling. How did you discover me? The auctioneer's eyes were gloomy, totally different from his amiable expression during the auction. His sentence was obviously directed at Yiqing Luo. The crowd heard the murderous tone. Their hearts couldn't help but clench together. It made one's heart feel an indescribable oppressive feeling. However, what surprised everyone was, facing the auctioneer, the young lady's expression didn't change in the slightest. It was as if he was not affected by the auctioneer at all. Between his brows, his emotions were extremely faint. Yiqing Luo met the auctioneer's gaze and the pink lips under the veil curled into a slight arc. Ever since I saw that monster, I've already guessed it. She paused for a moment, and then waved the devouring flame fan at the tip of her finger. I didn't expect that my guess would actually be correct. The auctioneer's gaze was fixed on the fan in Yiqing Luo's hands as his brows sunk. It's that weapon. Yiqing Luo waved her glower flame fan. That's right, inside. There's my secret weapon. Although it might not be able to kill you, at the very least, it will prevent you from automatically recovering. The glowing fan had been refined by Tang Beiyuan and had devoured Yoin's mental power. Right now, the glowing flame fan was the best weapon to deal with the undead puppets. However, this corpse puppet from the land. It was the auctioneer in front of him. Although it was not a finished product. But he was very strong. Her mental strength was also a little taxing on her. The glowing flame fan was unable to deal too much damage to the auctioneer. Chapter 3698. Also, all of you will become food for my war pet, White Fang. The auctioneer opened his arms and spoke in a dignified manner. The corners of his mouth curled up into an evil smile. His figure suddenly moved. In the next instant, he appeared in midair. And the white dragon monster that was originally hovering in the sky and roaring from time to time. Its huge body moved downwards. Then, he took the auctioneer's hand steadily. This scene caused everyone to be dumbfounded. That monster, it was actually the auctioneer's war pet. That was a man-eating monster. Everyone looked at the powerful and completely different auctioneer and suddenly said, You are not from the Earth realm. What do you want to do? Such a powerful aura. And he could subdue that invulnerable monster. This was definitely not a strength that a person from the Earth realm could have. Facing everyone's shocked expression. The auctioneer obviously enjoyed it. He sat on the head of the white dragon monster and smiled proudly and arrogantly. I used to be from the Earth realm, but now I am not. He chuckled. The black gas in his eyes was like a surging ink spring, surging. Listening to the auctioneer's answer, the fear in everyone's heart increased. Not from the earth realm now. In other words, the auctioneer had ascended. Now he had become a person from the heaven realm. So, what happened today was done by the people from the heaven realm. Someone from the heaven realm was ambitious. They wanted to change the dynasty of the earth realm. This thought flashed across everyone's mind. It made everyone's face turn pale. Ha ha ha, you bunch of stupid people, no one can escape. The auctioneer laughed wildly. Suddenly, he stretched out his finger and said proudly, White Fang, go. Devour the souls of these people, devour their Xian Qi, and turn their power into our power. Roar, the dragon's roar was deafening. The white dragon's body, which was hovering in mid-air, shook violently. It was as if the world had been turned upside down by the white dragon monster. Everyone's face became more and more pale. That monster, the monster is going to attack people again. Quick! Run! That monster hasn't moved, so it's waiting for its master. He had seen how terrifying the white dragon monster was. The crowd watched as the white dragon bent down and shook its body. They were so terrified that they almost collapsed to the ground. The white dragon roared, opened its bloody mouth, and rushed towards the people below. It was huge. This mouth could swallow at least 10 people into its stomach. Everyone was horrified. Run! Don't let that monster touch you. Once bitten by a monster. That was the consequence of dying without a complete corpse. Ha ha ha. You can't escape. None of you will be able to escape. The auctioneer was delighted to see the crazed crowd. He loved to watch his prey flee frantically. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape from the palm of his hand. This feeling was refreshing. The white dragon swooped down. His entire body exuded a murderous aura, as well as a bloody and savage aura. Everyone felt fear from the bottom of their hearts. The white dragon monster was impervious to weapons, water, and fire. They could not fight back against the white dragon. He wanted to escape. However, he was not as fast as the monster. They were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. It was just a matter of who killed first or later. Everyone panicked in their hearts and fell into despair and chaos. Suddenly, a hurricane swept past. Chapter 36-99. The alluring red glow seemed as though it could dye the entire heaven and earth. A puppet without any spiritual intelligence, what's there to be afraid of? Following that, a young lady's clear and melodious voice rang. And it was at this critical moment. A red figure charged straight towards that white dragon monster. This scene shocked everyone so much that they drew in a cold breath. They couldn't believe what they saw in front of them. Not afraid. That wasn't an ordinary monster. How could they not be afraid? If they were bitten, there was no possibility of survival at all. Looking at the scene of Yiqing Luo colliding with that monster, everyone's anxious hearts were all tightened into a ball. Isn't it just a dragon? An imitation, and you dare to call it a dragon? The young lady scoffed lightly as her tone was filled with disdain. When the crowd heard this, they were really shocked into a daze. They couldn't believe what their ears had heard. They even wondered if they had heard wrongly. Earlier the meaning of the young lady's words was, she also had a dragon. And it was a real dragon. Whereas the auctioneer who was sitting on the white dragon monster's back revealed a sinister cold smile. Young lady, don't joke around. Just based on you also have a dragon. A real dragon. He laughed loudly. This dragon of mine is not some imitation, but a real dragon. Yiqing Luo flipped her leg and her slender hand flipped. The glower flame fan on her fingertips was like a spark, flipping in her palm. Profound energy condensed, thousands of feet of wind waves surged. Against that white dragon monster, two bursts of energy collided directly. One after another, the sharp piercing dragon's roar reverberated through the earth. The young lady's expression didn't change at all. Profound energy surged. Heaven and earth rotated. The young lady's brows were like a blooming flower that led to the netherworld, bewitching, bloodthirsty and alluring. Her lips curled upwards as her palm moved and a clear voice spilled out from her mouth, Azure Dragon. Her voice had just landed. In a split second, the surroundings were covered with a layer of black fog. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. In the thick black fog, there seemed to be something breaking out from the ground. The surrounding air seemed to have condensed into frost. Soon after, as the sky surged, everyone saw a ray of green light. It was like a ray of light that flashed across the darkness. Bit by bit, he pulled out a thin seam. Then, bit by bit, they decorated the entire sky. Soon after, the black mist slowly dispersed to both sides. A sonorous dragon roar, like a shocking momentum, broke through the sky. The moment the dragon's roar rang out, the entire world seemed to have quietened down. All that was left was this extremely long dragon roar. His aura swallowed mountains and rivers, intimidating all directions. That was the moment the dragon roar stopped. From all directions, a series of beastly roars rang out in unison, echoing continuously. That was the sound of 10,000 beasts submitting to him. This movement. The auctioneer's eyes narrowed a little. The expression on his face darkened. Those people who were frozen on the spot and scared out of their wits felt like their hearts were about to jump out of their mouths. The orderly roars of the beasts seemed to be echoing in his ears again and again. The dragon race had appeared. All beasts submit. This was the true description of the dragon race. Roar, 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 the dragon's roars were louder and louder as it kept surging in the sky. A powerful and vast energy spread out in the surroundings. Following that, the sky was filled with thick black fog. Chapter 3700. The huge green dragon descended from the sky with the momentum of 1,000 caddies. The green dragon's scales seemed to be adorned with sparkling jewels, sparkling under the thick black fog. The surroundings were filled with gales, howling incessantly. Under the raging waves. The red-robed young lady stepped on the waves as she walked towards the place where the green dragon was hovering. All the surrounding black fog followed the young lady's approach. And directly lined up on both sides. After stepping on the wind and waves, the young lady leapt up and flipped onto the back of the green dragon. She stood on the dragon's head. Her slender figure danced with the wind, making a fluttering sound. The moment the green dragon appeared, it suppressed the tense atmosphere of the entire chaotic auction. The green dragon hovered on the spot, its tail dragging on the ground, coiling several rounds. It proudly raised its dragon head. The dragon's whiskers fluttered along with the dragon's breath. A pair of green dragon eyes, emitting the majesty of the dragon clan. The moment the green dragon appeared, the auctioneer almost fell off White Tooth's back. Not only because of its fear, but also because. The moment the azure dragon appeared, White Fang lowered his head and curled up into a ball. It didn't even have the courage to raise its head to look at the green dragon. The dragon clan showed its might. All the beasts in the world had to be obedient. This scene made the auctioneer's face gloomy. This caused the surrounding people to be both delighted and shocked. After this green dragon appeared, they then understood what a dragon was. This was a dragon. A real dragon. That white dragon monster was simply a monster. Even that monster had submitted to the majesty of a true dragon. With the existence of a dragon, what were they afraid of? Everyone's gazes were burning as they stared at the green dragon. Looking at that sparkling green scales, overflowing with brilliant colors. Looking at that huge dragon's body, coiling round and round. Looking at the young lady standing on top of the dragon's head. Indescribably domineering. Indescribably awe-inspiring. This scene, could be said. The next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. They would never be able to forget this scene in front of them. How is this possible? The auctioneer was also shocked. In the air, strong fluctuations kept pressing against him. He almost fell off from White Tooth's body. Yiqing Luo stood on top of the dragon's head. The dragon's body swayed. The air and the space swirled violently as it swayed. The power that represented the Azure Dragon was unleashed. After the fake dragon appeared, the Dragon King's eyes widened. In the pet space, the Azure Dragon was so excited that it wanted to rush out and slap him in the face. It could be said that a corpse puppet like White Fang was an insult to the dignity of a dragon. He was right. White Fang was just a corpse puppet. White Fang was not a dragon at all. Instead, it was a flood dragon. Don't underestimate the difference between a flood dragon and a dragon. However, there was a world of difference between the two. Dragons are gods. Especially as a holy beast. They were gods who lived in the heavens. As for the flood dragon, it belonged to the category of flood dragons that lived in the water, resembling snakes yet not snakes, resembling dragons yet not dragons. Before the tribulation. A flood dragon that didn't even have a dragon horn. White Fang was the flood dragon before the tribulation. For some unknown reason. He was turned into a corpse puppet and was sent to the side of the auctioneer. Oh no, White Fang wasn't the auctioneer's battle pet. It was just that the mastermind had temporarily lent White Fang to the auctioneer. A flood dragon actually pretended to be a dragon. It even used the name of a dragon to do evil. As the ancestor of dragons, how could the Azure Dragon tolerate it? Chapter 3701. This scene fell into Xiao Yulu's eyes. This caused her eyes to be covered with a layer of sinister coldness. The flames of hatred burned brightly. She gritted her teeth so hard that they broke. How could that bitch Di Luo tame a dragon? That was a dragon. In the entire world, those who had dragons as battle pets could be counted on one hand. Moreover, Xiao Yulu was even sure. Di Luo/S dragon was a few grades higher than the dragon she saw in the Linglong Palace. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her delicate body was trembling uncontrollably. Jealousy was growing in her heart. The auctioneer got up from the ground in disbelief and staggered. His hand trembled as he pointed at the girl in midair. She was so imposing that no one dared to look directly at her. His face was deathly pale, like the aura of death. White Fang. Stand up. So what if it /s a dragon? You /re an immortal dragon. Compared to it, you /re more like a dragon. The auctioneer trembled and patted White Fang /s body. He had encountered a real dragon. He had no strength to fight back. Just like before, when the people from the major forces were swallowed by White Fang and had no strength to fight back. Now, this feeling fell on his own body. It was extremely uncomfortable. It was like seeing a lake in an arid desert. After running closer, he realized that it was just a mirage. That kind of despair made him want to die. Oh, no. He had already died before. He was also a dead man now. No matter how the auctioneer shouted. White Fang was curled up in a corner, shivering and unwilling to budge. The auctioneer felt that he was really isolated and helpless, relying on the existence of White Fang. He was just one person here. If White Fang didn't cooperate, how could those forces and families that were swallowed by White Fang let him go? He didn't dare to think about the consequences. In fact, he didn't have to think about it. The moment White Fang curled up in the corner, the people from the major forces were already full of joy, seeing that White Fang had no will to fight at all. Many families that had lost more than half of their elites decisively looked for trouble. Dozens of people surrounded him. Why did you bring that monster to the auction? Why did you block the auction? What is your purpose? Who are you? Why would you do that? Let us out of the auction. At this moment, everyone couldn't wait to leave this damned place. He stayed at the auction for a moment longer. They felt that the danger still existed. However, no matter how they questioned the auctioneer, no matter how cruelly they tried to force the auctioneer did not give any answer. Instead, he looked at Yiqing Luo, who was standing in mid-air, looking at him coldly as he laughed out loud. None of you will be able to leave this place. So what if there were real dragons? Don't tell me that dragon can bring you out of this formation. Ha ha ha. Impossible. Even if the god of heaven were to come, he wouldn't be able to leave. The auctioneer laughed maniacally. Everyone started punching and kicking each other. They did not dare to use their Xian energy. He didn't dare to kill him. The current situation. Only the auctioneer knew what was going on. Looking at the mess of people, Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes slightly. The auctioneer was a corpse puppet. No matter how those people tortured the auctioneer, even if they cut him into pieces. Chapter 3702. Impervious to swords and spears, impervious to fire and water, immortal. Not only that white dragon monster. And the auctioneer. Corpse puppets. In this case, her identity had really been exposed. But what made Yiqing Luo curious was, why did those people chase her all the way to the earth boundary? She squinted her long and narrow eyes. She couldn't guess the answer to this question. So she could only let the other party answer. Yiqing Luo patted the green dragon's head lightly. The green dragon spat out a dragon's breath as its body suddenly dived downwards. An overbearing aura came charging towards them. The various powerhouses people swiftly moved away when they sensed the approaching aura. The crowd saw that arrogant green dragon slightly stooped down. The arrogant dragon's head slowly bent down. The young lady's lips curled into a smile as she said, "Thank you," to the green dragon, and with a leap, she landed on the ground. At the same time, when the young lady stood firmly on the ground, that green dragon's green light suddenly flashed. His colossal body instantly transformed into the same size as the auction house. Step by step, it followed closely behind the young lady. The surrounding people unknowingly opened up a path. Even the auctioneer, who was still lying on the ground laughing, subconsciously sat up and looked at her in a daze. But a moment later, Yiqing Luo had already walked in front of the auctioneer. Yiqing Luo stood still as her pink lips rose. "I'll give you two choices, either you answer my question or I'll beat you up until you answer my question." When the crowd heard that, their faces were filled with black lines. Simple and violent. No problem at all. The auctioneer looked at the glower flame fan in Yiqing Luo's hands alertly as the smile on his face froze. He took a step back. Yiqing Luo followed closely as she smiled. "I know your background and your motive, don't think of lying to me." She moved closer as her 5 fingers moved. The glower flame fan was pressed against the auctioneer's chin. Then she tilted her head and innocently blinked as she laughed lightly. "I even have a way to deal with you, don't doubt my words." The auctioneer stiffened as he stared at the glower flame fan on his neck. A sinister glint flashed past his eyes. Who on earth is your boss? What's the motive of locking everyone in the auction? All of this. Is it related to me being here? When Yiqing Luo asked questions, there was a smile in between her brows. But the words he spat out and the tone of his voice. It was so cold that it made people shiver. The auctioneer, who had been surrounded by dozens of people and dealt with all kinds of cruel methods without batting an eyelid, now revealed a horrifying expression. His eyes widened and his neck stiffened. Not answering. So you're choosing the second option. Yiqing Luo's eyes curved. He moved his palm. The devouring flame fan gently slashed open. A dazzling light flashed across the auctioneer's eyes. If you're touched by my glowing flame fan, you won't be able to recover that part of your body no matter what. She chuckled, and the hand holding the glowing flame fan slowly moved downwards through the air. Finally, it stopped 3 inches below the man's navel. She chuckled. However, you shouldn't be too bothered. After all, you're just a dead person. You don't know pain, right? The auctioneer's face turned completely pale. *CK. Even if he was a dead man. But, as a man, the most important thing can't be lacking, okay? She held a weapon and threatened the man's family jewels. Was this still a young lady? Yiqing Luo had been paying attention to the auctioneer's emotional changes. Looking at the auctioneer's black face. Chapter 3703. The auctioneer's eyes moved. Yiqing Luo continued, answer these 3 answers and I'll let you off. Her voice paused for a moment before she chuckled again. Her voice was very evil. Don't say that I didn't warn you. Once you fail, the person behind you will still appear and take over your task. At that time, I will still know the answer I want. The auctioneer's body tensed up as he heard Yiqing Luo's words. The expression on his face unknowingly had some subtle changes. The next moment, he felt a burst of profound energy being released. A ball of excited flame started to burn on the glower flame fan. His body stiffened as he said, I'll speak. I'll speak. The profound strength slowly came to a stop. The young lady's hand, which was holding the glower flame fan, pressed the fan against the auctioneer's chest. Speak. The auctioneer looked at the fan in Yiqing Luo's hand, which was far away from his family jewels, before he heaved a sigh of relief. I also don't know who the master behind me is. My motive for coming here is to send White Teeth to the auction house. As for the reason. He paused as he looked at White Teeth, who was still shivering in fear. The auction will gather all the elites from the 3 main cities. What's more, most of the powerhouses will bring their own elites to the auction to declare their power. His words made everyone's gazes look over. The auctioneer's voice trembled slightly, so they specially set up at the periphery of the auction. Roar! Suddenly, a sharp dragon's roar reverberated through the entire sky. It also forcibly suppressed the auctioneer's voice. When he heard that dragon's roar, the auctioneer's eyes suddenly lit up. His peripheral vision saw the crowd looking towards the direction of the dragon's roar. A glint flashed past his eyes. Suddenly the wind from his palm moved as he struck a palm towards Yiqing Luo's face. Following that, his figure retreated backwards as he rushed towards the direction of White Teeth. Yiqing Luo's vision, although followed the dragon's roar and looked towards that direction. But her own perception and body's instinctive reaction. At the instant when the auctioneer struck, she had already dodged sideways. But the auctioneer had already escaped from her restraints. That White Teeth, who was originally shivering in the corner, had unknowingly raised its head up high. Its huge body began to roll and spin. Before the azure dragon appeared. White Fang did indeed have a trace of a dragon's majesty. However, at this moment, the azure dragon was a foil. Even if White Fang had such a huge body, there was no imposing manner to speak of. But in the eyes of the auctioneer, White Fang was their only hope. Yiqing Luo originally wanted to chase after him. But when his gaze touched a certain place, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. The expression on his face also became cold and solemn. When the crowd saw the auctioneer escape, they were eager to chase after him. But when he saw Yiqing Luo bringing the azure dragon, she returned back to Qiao Yinyan and the rest. They didn't understand the meaning of Yiqing Luo's action momentarily. It was during this moment of stupor. All of a sudden, a blood-curdling scream rang out. Everyone saw a scene that made their hair stand on end. The auctioneer, who had been running towards White Fang, stood rooted to the spot. Its huge white teeth bent down slightly and bit the auctioneer's head. Gotcha! His head was bitten into White Fang's mouth. White Fang gave a long roar as it spiraled towards the horizon, stirring the dark clouds in the sky. Chapter 3704. That auctioneer whose head had been bitten off was still standing on the ground as his body kept swaying and his hands kept waving about. He staggered and swayed as he walked forward. There wasn't a single drop of blood on that body. His head had been bitten off by that monster and he was still alive and not bleeding. This was also a monster. Everyone's inner thoughts were in turmoil. They looked at the scene in front of them in shock and fear. On the other side, Yiqing Luo brought the azure dragon as she rushed to the side of Qiao Yinyan and the others. Bo Songyi, Pei Sheng and the others were all staring at the azure dragon. Their faces were filled with fear and trepidation. This was their first time seeing a dragon. And the first time they had such close contact with a dragon. Only Qiao Yinyan alone had a congealed expression as he wasn't attracted by the azure dragon at all. Instead he looked at Yiqing Luo and asked, "What's the matter?" Yiqing Luo pursed her lips as she raised her head and looked towards a certain spot in the sky. "Look over there." Qiao Yinyan followed her gaze. Suddenly, his pupils dilated. What is that? Their voices attracted both Songyi and Pei Sheng's attention. Pei Sheng's expression changed slightly when he saw the scene in the sky. Why is there a black hole above? Yes. Black hole. A small black hole was gradually enlarging. Bit by bit, it filled the entire sky of the auction. Evil cold yin qi spread across the sky. It was dark and oppressive, making people feel depressed. What is that? Qiao Yinyan looked at Yiqing Luo as he asked. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips. If I didn't see wrongly, it might be an array. This array looked very familiar. Previously in the Nirvana realm, she had seen it before. She squinted her eyes slightly. The others also noticed the commotion on their side. When they saw that huge black hole in the sky, all of them cried out in shock. Just at this moment, that black hole suddenly expanded. Following that, one after another figures walked out from that black hole. It was as though heavenly soldiers and generals had descended from the sky. Wave after wave, they walked out of the black hole and into the auction hall. Rows after rows of people dressed in black robes, looking sinister and treacherous. Just as they walked into the auction, the crowd felt that in the air. There was a chill in the air. Even the air that he breathed in was a bone-chilling cold that made his hair stand on end. A teleportation array. Qiao Yinyan frowned in surprise. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Yes. That black hole was indeed a teleportation formation. It was when they were in the Nirvana realm. The gloomy palace used this teleportation formation to send over batch after batch of semi-finished corpse puppets. Gloomy palace, Yiqing Luo's line of sight swept past those rows of figures. With a single glance, he saw 3 people floating at the side of the black hole. Her eyes darkened. Yu Ji, Yu Nu, and Yu Han. It really was them, after the last group of people walked out of the black hole. The black hole slowly disappeared in midair. Yiqing Luo gauged with her eyes. There were at least 200 people who had entered the auction. The 3 people from the Yu family stood at the back of the crowd, hiding their figures. Yiqing Luo also noticed. Standing at the very front of this batch of black-robed men he was also an acquaintance. That man apparently saw Yiqing Luo. A pair of malicious eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. He raised his hand and made a throat-slitting action. Chapter 3705. She opened her lips slightly as she exchanged glances with that person, Pharaoh He, long time no see. The person who stood in front of the crowd as the leader. He was the former Pharaoh group of the Dark Forces and the only survivor of the Dark Forces, Pharaoh He. So this was the Dark Forces team led by Pharaoh He. The sudden appearance of a group of black-robed men, and black-robed men who descended from the sky. This aroused the vigilance of various large forces cultivators. One look and you knew that they came with ill intentions. Especially those black-robed men, the evil chi which was emitting made one feel uncomfortable. The 2 executive elders' expressions changed slightly. They subconsciously looked towards Yiqing Luo. But they saw Yiqing Luo's expression was grave as she lowered her eyes and said something to Qiao Yinyan. The expression on her face was extremely solemn and complicated. The executive elder's heart skipped a beat. Executive elder immediately leaned close to Yiqing Luo. Miss D, those people. Who are they? You know them. I've crossed hands with them before. Yiqing Luo replied calmly and raised her brows. Don't you guys know their identities? Executive elder shook his head. Looked like the secluded palace had only developed their forces in Nirvana realm. The people in the Earth realm didn't know about the secluded palace. The secluded palace had suffered heavy losses in the battle in Nirvana realm. They still had the energy to set their sights on the Earth realm. How big of an obsession did they have with her? Who are they? Were they the ones who set up the array formation that sealed off the auction? That monster is theirs? Executive elder asked with a pale face. Yiqing Luo looked at the valiant and spirited Pharaoh He and nodded. The auctioneer should be a bait. These people are the appetizer. But the main course. She squinted her eyes slightly as her gaze swept past the crowd and landed on 3 nether. Her eyes darkened a little. Yiqing Luo, I didn't expect to meet you here. As though she noticed Yiqing Luo's gaze. Ghost Girl walked out from the crowd. She looked at Yiqing Luo with a smile, but the haze between her brows was extremely obvious. Ghost Girl's voice broke the silence. Everyone looked toward Ghost Girl's line of sight at the same time. Yiqing Luo. Who was Yiqing Luo? But when everyone's vision was fixed on Yiqing Luo, they were all stunned. Isn't this girl called Di Luo? However, looking at Misty's expression, it seemed as though the Yiqing Luo, which was mentioned by that black-robed cold lady, was that Di Luo. Yunu continued to look at her with a smile. We're old friends, shouldn't you greet me? As soon as he said that, the crowd immediately burst into an uproar. Even Bo Songyi unconsciously led his 10 over mercenary brothers to retreat a few steps away from Yiqing Luo. This group of black-robed men in front of him. It was obviously targeted at them. It was very likely that he was the instigator of the current situation. This bunch of people and that lady called Yiqing Luo were old friends. Didn't that mean they were in cahoots? The crowd immediately thought of what Xiao Yulu had told them earlier. All these were planned by Yiqing Luo. The white dragon was related to her. The ceiling formation was related to her. Was she deliberately allying with external forces to weaken the strength of the land? Seeing that everyone was already suspicious of Yiqing Luo. Chapter 3706. Xiao Yulu pointed at Yiqing Luo and laughed. What I said is right. She has ulterior motives. All these are orchestrated by her. As Xiao Yulu spoke, she walked out and pointed at Yiqing Luo as she continued with a sneer. This person appeared out of thin air and advanced step by step, all for today's plot. Xiao Yulu's accusation made everyone even more suspicious of Yiqing Luo. Seems like it's true. If she doesn't have a guilty conscience, why would she hide her name? Lie to us. Moreover, she obviously knows that group of people. That group of people could possibly be the force behind her. Intentionally trapping us here, what's her motive? All of us have been cheated by her. Someone asked Xiao Yinyan, eldest young master Xiao, I'm afraid even you don't know her real identity. She hid her name and lurked beside you, so she must be trying to make a move on you. I find it strange. I've clearly never heard of this woman before, so how did she suddenly become known to everyone in Without Embroiling City? All sorts of discussions were going on. The way they looked at Yiqing Luo. They totally treated Yiqing Luo and that group of black-robed men who descended from the sky as a group of people. At this time, these people had already experienced wave after wave of horror and then joy. Their minds had already suffered a serious blow. Listening to those discussions, Pei Xing's face turned red from anxiety. He opened his mouth and wanted to refute those people's words. But before he could open his mouth, he was suppressed by the questions that came from all directions. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes slightly. Her line of sight was still on Ghost Girl's face. Ghost Girl's victorious smile was still hanging on her face and had not faded. Apparently, Ghost Girl did it on purpose. 3 people make a tiger. As long as she incited everyone to not believe Yiqing Luo's words, those gossips would be able to crush Yiqing Luo. No matter how capable Yiqing Luo was, there was absolutely no way to turn the tables in today's plan. At this juncture, no matter how Yiqing Luo explained, no one would believe her. Even if Yiqing Luo was really clean, she couldn't explain it. The more Yiqing Luo explained, the more suspicious it would be. Yunu delightfully raised her lips, wanting to see Yiqing Luo's flustered look. However, what she saw was that the young girl's expression did not change in the slightest. Nether girl. The girl's voice was clear and light. Her tone was calm and without any fluctuation. You're just a bunch of rats. Do you think you're worthy of calling me old friends? Don't try to climb up to me, Yiqing Luo. Her tone was calm. However, the arrogance in his words was shocking. Even Ghost Maiden's expression changed. You're still quibbling. Xiao Yulu naturally refused to give Yiqing Luo any chance to explain. Don't think that by saying this, you can make everyone believe you. Yiqing Luo sneered as she retorted impolitely. Do you think that everyone is like you, a fool? You. Xiao Yulu gritted her teeth. Yiqing Luo's smile gradually turned cold. Her eyes, which were like the first snow that had melted, swept past the crowd indifferently. Whether you believe me or not, or whatever thoughts you have, I don't care. I'll only say this once, if you want to leave this place alive, don't create trouble for me. Chapter 3707. The young lady's voice was clear and calm. His voice was indifferent, and not a hint of emotion could be heard from it. But there was an indescribable feeling of pressure from the bottom of one's heart. Obviously, they were being ridiculed and insulted. But on seeing the young lady's eyes, an icy cold glint revolved. Her chilly gaze swept past everyone's line of sight. Countless anger in their hearts were suppressed. But there was one person who was an exception. For example, what do you mean don't give you trouble? Di Luo. No, I should call you Yi Qing Luo now. You even hide your own name, how dare you talk big. Xiao Yulu's face flushed red, turning purple. Her gaze turned cold as she continued, from what I see, you are just putting on an act in order to let your plan go smoothly. A person like you, full of lies. Her voice paused as she looked at Xiao Yinyan. Brother, did you see that? This is the woman you have always believed in. She had been lying to you right from the start. She is. I know. Xiao Yinyan's clear voice interrupted Xiao Yulu's words. Xiao Yulu was stunned. You know, what? I know, her name is Yi Qing Luo. Xiao Yinyan's expression was calm as he replied calmly. Xiao Yulu's pupils suddenly widened. The meaning was, Yi Qing Luo didn't lie to him, nor did she hide her identity. No. Impossible. That woman was a liar. Xiao Yulu was shocked. Hearing this sentence, Yi Qing Luo also got a shock. What did Xiao Yinyan's words mean? Knew she was Yi Qing Luo. Was it to help her out of trouble? But even if she had doubts now, it wasn't a good time to ask. Yi Qing Luo only took a glance at Xiao Yulu. In her eyes. At best, Xiao Yulu was just a clown. What she was more concerned about was the reason why three nether and the dark forces came to the earth realm. The current palace of darkness should still be recuperating. But they dealt with the earth realm in such an ostentatious manner, setting up such a huge game of chess. It was really hard for her not to think too much. TSK. Yi Qing Luo, you're really cruel. Yunu chuckled softly. In any case, we've fought a battle of life and death. We can be considered as people who have experienced life and death together. Do you really have the heart to treat me like this? Yi Qing Luo's expression didn't change. You're mistaken, it's me who one-sidedly tortured you and it's also you who one-sidedly almost lost your life, so we can't be considered as people who have experienced life and death together. She paused, then continued, we're both women. Don't use your honey trap on me. Yunu sighed and glanced sideways at the two people beside her. That's why I said that I should have let you go from the start. This sentence of yours isn't right either. Yi Qing Luo continued to be indifferent. The both of them are too ugly. Using the beauty trap would only hurt the eyes. Ugly, ugly. Although the silence and coldness could not be considered as a peerless beauty. But it was definitely not ugly, right? Yu Ji and Yu Han's faces instantly darkened. The ghost girl covered her mouth and smiled delicately. However, her beautiful eyes were filled with an eerie coldness. She suddenly raised her hand. Her dark red nail seemed as though her hand was stained with fresh blood, which was strange and alluring. She laughed softly. Since you're so against being friends with me, then you can't blame us for disregarding our past relationship. The moment her hand straightened. Roar, a dragon's roar rang from the horizon. Chapter 3708. That white head coiled around Ghost Maiden's outstretched hand. Ghost Maiden saw the broken dragon horn on White Tooth's head. The expression on her face turned slightly cold. She raised her hand and caressed White Tooth's head. White Tooth gave a low howl, as though he was acting coquettishly. This scene made everyone understand what was going on. This monster, it wasn't the auctioneer's battle pet. It was the lady named Ghost Maiden's battle pet. Who were they? Everyone shifted their gaze towards Yi Qing Luo. They were still hesitating about Yi Qing Luo's relationship with those people. Everyone, don't be deceived by their tricks. Executive Elder cleared his throat. no matter what Miss Yiqing Luo's name is. But I firmly believe, and dare to use my reputation as executive elder to guarantee that she absolutely has no intention to harm anyone. On the contrary, the other party time and time again, trying to create public opinion to break down our trust towards Miss Yiqing Luo, but it made me believe in Miss Yiqing Luo even more. Executive elder had been the closest to Yiqing Luo. The both of them could hear Yiqing Luo's conversation with the people beside her. From Yiqing Luo's performance from the start. And the conversation with Qiao Yinyan and the rest. Adding on to the fact that when the monster attacked everyone earlier, she blocked it and summoned the green dragon to suppress that monster. Whether a person was innocent. When a person does something, does he or she have another goal in mind? No matter how good the disguise was, there would still be flaws. Executive elder believed that Yiqing Luo and the other party were absolutely not accomplices. Executive elder's words made everyone's wavering hearts start to float again. Xiao Yulu was so angry that she almost bit her teeth off. Why did someone always stand on that slut's side? She was obviously Without Embroiling City's mysterious maiden. She was the one with the most distinguished status. A bunch of ignorant people. Xiao Yulu clenched her fists tightly, the back of her slender hands were covered with green veins. Her bloodshot eyes were filled with jealousy as she looked towards the direction of Ghost Maiden and the rest. In her heart, a decision was slowly formed. Perhaps she felt Xiao Yulu's gaze. That Ghost Maiden who was caressing her white teeth curled her lips as she laughed sinisterly. On the account that everyone wants to leave the auction, I shall give everyone a chance to leave. Everyone immediately looked at her. Netherworld Girl curled her lips and spoke in a gentle voice that was filled with bewitchment. Join our Palace of Darkness. As long as you leave your current forces and join the Palace of Darkness, you will be able to leave the auction. Serene Girl's words caused the crowd's expression to freeze. Yiqing Luo's eyes dimmed as her slender brows creased tightly as she looked at Spectral Girl. She was trying to poach him. Was there anyone who would poach someone so openly? Moreover, he was able to participate in the annual auction. Which one of them didn't come from a famous force? Most of them might not have heard of Gloomy Palace. Let them break away from their current power. Join a force that I've never heard of. And using such a despicable method. Anyone with a bit of backbone wouldn't listen to him. I'll join. Just as everyone was expressing their unyielding spirit in their hearts, a voice suddenly rang out. A clear voice suddenly rang out. He looked in the direction of the voice. Everyone saw Xiao Yulu flying in the direction of the ghost girl. Chapter 3709. The crowd was in an uproar. How did this Palace of Darkness appear? Why haven't I heard of it before? The Empyrean Lady of Without Embroiling City gave up her status as the Empyrean Lady and joined the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Not only is she the Empyrean Fairy of Without Embroiling City, but she's also the first young miss of Without Embroiling City's Qiao family. Is she really going to give up all of that? Did you see how close that monster was to them? This means that the reason we're trapped in the auction is because of them. They want our lives and want us to join their bullsh** T Dark Palace. Pooh! Just now, because of White Fong's savagery, the scene of it devouring a large number of profound practitioners. This group of people was the culprit behind everything. How could the crowd give them any face? However, just as everyone was talking about it, there was no hesitation in Xiao Yulu's footsteps. Ha ha ha. Empyrean Maiden, I'll prove that you've made the right choice. The dark woman curled her red lips tenderly and hooked her finger at Xiao Yulu. It looked as if it was summoning its little pet. However, Xiao Yulu stepped forward obediently. She stared at Yunu and said word by word, my only condition for joining the Palace of Gloomy Darkness is I want to kill that woman with my own hands. No problem, Yunu answered straightforwardly. The corners of Qiao Yulu's mouth curled up into a sinister sneer. It could be seen that this group of people was extremely powerful. Now the executive elder had already stood on Yiqing Luo's side. Whatever she said was of no use. Moreover, sooner or later, someone would find out that this dragon egg was indeed brought to the auction house by her. She had been used by this so-called palace of gloomy darkness. This also meant that she was already black. Joining the gloomy palace was her only option. The only one, the way to survive and kill Yiqing Luo with his own hands. Because she and the palace of gloomy darkness had a common enemy. What about you guys? Those who want to join the palace of gloomy darkness should hurry up. There will be a limit to the number of people who can join. Yunu looked at the crowd with a smile. The feminine voice was filled with a chill that made one's body tremble. Everyone snorted disdainfully. Evidently, they didn't take you seriously at all. From the looks of it, all of you don't want to leave this place. All of you want to become White Fang's food. Yunu wasn't angry. She gently stroked her lips with her dark red fingers and said with a smile, "Then don't blame the Palace of Darkness for not giving you a chance to live." The executive elder's face darkened as he listened to Ghost Girl's arrogant words. He took a look at the calm-looking Yiqing Luo and subsequently looked at Yunu, cruel and bloody, indiscriminately killing the innocent heretical sect. You still want to instigate us? What's your goal? Aren't you afraid that we'll join forces with our families to deal with you after we leave the auction? In the eyes of the executive elder and the profound practitioners of the various forces, this so-called palace of gloomy darkness was just a new small force. The dark woman chuckled when she heard this. Jiao Jiao's gentle laughter was accompanied by a trace of sinister treachery. That's if you can walk out of the auction alive, isn't it? She met the executive elder's gaze as she gave a tender smile, but those who are unwilling to join the palace of gloomy darkness can only die here, forever unable to walk out of the auction. That arrogant words and ridiculing attitude made everyone's heart surge with rage. You don't believe me? Then let's kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Yunu's fingers caressed White Fang by the side of her body. As her voice fell, White Fang roared as it spiraled and surged. Chapter 37:10. The other party's arrogant attitude made all the cultivators' faces turn black. Executive Elder A took the opportunity to shout out sternly, "The other party only has 200 over people and we have hundreds of people, don't tell me we can't defeat them. As long as we kill them, we will definitely be able to break out of the array." Executive Elder B looked towards Yiqing Luo, D. "Miss Yi, that monster, I'll have to trouble you and Master Long." As he said that, he looked respectfully at Azure Dragon. No matter what profound grade they sensed from Yiqing Luo, to be able to subdue a dragon beast as her own battle pet, her ability was definitely not to be underestimated. The strong deserved their respect. Yiqing Luo took a look at that White Fang which was originally trembling under Azure Dragon's suppression, as it started to bare its fangs and claws again. She pursed her lips and said, "That monster, Azure Dragon, and I can settle it, but those black-robed men, don't belittle them. They are the same as that monster." Yiqing Luo hadn't finished her words. Suddenly, they heard a mournful shriek reverberating through the sky. Under Executive Elder A's call, many powerhouses cultivators moved together. But there were a few cultivators who totally didn't put the black-robed men in their eyes. They directly bypassed the group and charged towards the black-robed men, wanting to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. But they had not expected. The weapon in their hands had slashed the black-robed man's waist into two. That black-robed man who was left with only a section of his body could still use his bones as a weapon, piercing into their hearts. The scene was shocking. Just like how the auctioneer's head was bitten off, but his body was still able to move. These black-robed men, even if their limbs were separated from their bodies, they could still continue to attack. This was simply a bunch of monsters. Those cultivators who took the lead to charge up were all annihilated in a split second. After that, the various powerhouses cultivators who followed Executive Elder's call were so shocked that they stopped in their tracks, standing stiffly on the spot, their faces filled with terror as they looked at the shocking scene. Even Executive Elder A was stunned on the spot. Ha ha ha. Still want to resist? No way, none of you can escape. My group of puppets are immortal. Yu looked at the terror on everyone's faces with satisfaction. She laughed delightfully. She was extremely complacent as she raised her slender eyebrows towards Yiqing Luo's direction. My little white fangs, go, these are all your food. Ghost Woman stroked the white fangs that were writhing in the sky and issued an order. White Fang roared, and rushed towards those profound practitioners who were frozen in place. He opened his mouth and rushed towards them. The black-robed men did not stop their attacks. Powerful air currents were released from their bodies, which condensed into blades and frantically attacked the people in front of them. Ah, help! Monster! They are all monsters. These are all monsters. The profound practitioners who were originally filled with confidence to kill all of these people before them were now fleeing in all directions in fright. However, their speed simply couldn't compare to White Fang and the black-robed men. Those who don't can only die. If you want to live, join the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Ghost Girl's light and spirited laughter bewitched all the profound practitioners present. We can also modify all of you to become like these puppets of mine. We can give all of you bodies that are impervious to all weapons and impervious to fire and water. The blood of the profound practitioners dyed the ground red. As his white teeth moved, he swallowed a profound practitioner into his stomach. Dark clouds rolled, lightning flashed, and thunder roared. Chapter 37:11. Yi, Miss Yi. Executive Elder Old B's face turned pale as he called out Yiqing Luo's name in a trembling voice. That bunch of monsters. There was no way to deal with them. Even if they had the numbers and were willing to unite. But there was no way they could defeat those undying monsters. Their attacks towards that bunch of monsters were totally unable to cause any damage at all. What should they do? Executive Elder subconsciously placed all his hopes on Yiqing Luo. The scene in front of her made Yiqing Luo's pupils turn wretched. Her long and narrow eyes slowly filled with an austere cold intent. Her pitch-black pupils seemed to be covered with frost. Her slender brows creased tightly. She had not expected Yu to make a move just like that. Moreover, it was done in such a straightforward manner, totally not giving these people any chance to hesitate at all. From the looks of it, they really intended to capture all the various powerhouses elites from the various main cities in the Earth domain in one fell swoop. If this carried on, it was merely the time for half an incense stick to burn. The people here would be forced to death by this atmosphere first. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as a burst of fiery profound energy shot out from her fingertips. Just as the profound energy charged into midair. In an instant, like a volcano eruption, it exploded with a loud bang. Immediately following that, the sky was filled with fire clouds as intense chi waves circulated in the air, blocking the surging white fangs and black-robed men. Yu's brows rose. Seeing Yiqing Luo making a move, her feminine lips curled upwards as she laughed. Yiqing Luo, do you think you can stop me? Following her ending words, Yu raised her hand as her palm landed on Qiao Yulu's shoulder. Qiao Yulu cried out miserably as she spat out a large mouthful of blood. Immediately following that, boundless yin qi entered Qiao Yulu's body. Qiao Yulu's body kept twisting and struggling under the black qi as she cried out miserably in pain. Immediately following that, when Qiao Yulu absorbed all the yin qi into her body, Yunu's palm pushed Xiao Yulu towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Since you want to join secluded palace, then show your sincerity. Xiao Yulu's body was like an arrow that had left the bow as it shot towards Yiqing Luo. Right in front of him was a violent surge of profound energy mixed with yin energy that caused one's entire body to tremble. Yiqing Luo commanded Azure Dragon to stop White Fang's fake dragon from continuing to devour humans. Then, he faced Xiao Yulu's attack and directly counterattacked. The two forces collided. An explosive sound suddenly erupted in the air. In all directions, the air waves of profound strength were set off, like rolling waves. The surging air waves were like sharp blades, cutting across the skin on his face. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm as she fiercely passed through the surging qi waves. As his profound energy surged, the gourd flame fan in his hands had already shot out a strong profound energy. Oh! Xiao Yulu was hit in the chest by the wind blade. She let out a muffled groan as her body flew backward. Yiqing Luo closed her glower flame fan as her gaze swept towards the direction of Azure Dragon. Under Azure Dragon's attack, White Fang was no longer as ostentatious as before. His entire body was cut into pieces by the Azure Dragon's sharp claws. White Fang, on the other hand, seemed to know no exhaustion and continued to tangle with the Azure Dragon without hesitation. It seemed like the Azure Dragon had the upper hand. But, somehow, something felt amiss. Yiqing Luo's brows creased into a bundle as she stared deadly at the Azure Dragon. She was about to head towards the Azure Dragon's side to settle White Fang first. But she was blocked by a gust of strong wind. Di Luo, no, Yiqing Luo. Chapter 37:12. Motherf ****. Yiqing Luo's heart was about to explode. Wasn't this girl annoying? Yiqing Luo took a step back to avoid Xiao Yulu's attack. Xiao Yulu, you've been used by them once or twice, haven't you learnt your lesson? Do you really think that you'll be able to survive after they've wiped out all the profound practitioners from the various powers? I don't know if you can survive or not, but what I can confirm is that you will definitely die. Xiao Yulu pressed on. On that beautiful face, her eyelashes cast a black arc under her eyes. Wisps of black aura, like ink, spread out in her eyes. It made her look extremely gloomy. This was the sign of yin qi entering the body. Yiqing Luo frowned. This Xiao Yulu's hatred towards her was a little scary. In order to kill her, she didn't hesitate to abandon her identity as mysterious maiden and chose to join the secluded palace, willingly to be used by others. Yiqing Luo really didn't understand which class this thinking was for. Anyway, she felt that Xiao Yulu could no longer be described with the words silly or stupid. Otherwise, it would be an insult to these words. Yiqing Luo was entangled by Xiao Yulu. The black-robed man's attack didn't stop. Xiao Yinyan looked at the horizon, at the two figures fighting, and that bloody and horrifying scene around them. His expression was cold as he pursed his lips and looked at Pei Xing. The situation is critical now. I'm afraid it's not realistic to rely on all Luo alone. We can't stand by and watch anymore. Follow me closely. All Luo She won't. Pei Xing's pupils contracted, his hands clenched into fists as he asked worriedly. Xiao Yinyan took a look at the apparently crazy Xiao Yulu, his face sunk. All Luo's ability is far beyond our imagination. What we need to do now is to protect ourselves, not to be a burden to her. Those monsters, other than Yiqing Luo's weapon. These people were unable to deal with those monsters. They couldn't resist. Which meant that they could only passively accept those monsters' attacks. If this went on, even if they had the advantage in numbers, they would immediately be at a disadvantage. Gather everyone and work together. The executive elder and Qiao Yin thought of the same thing. In order to prevent more profound practitioners from being sacrificed, they had to take relative measures. Even if he couldn't deal with those monsters, at the very least, he had to stop them from committing murder. Yes. No matter what, we have to control our casualties first. There are a few hundred of us. Why should we be afraid of these monsters? We are elites from the various major cities and major factions. I can't die here. We can't let these monsters achieve their goal. Everyone's eyes were burning with passion. One by one, they released their dark force, fighting with their lives to suppress the other party. The dazzling dark force was extremely eye-catching in the midst of Yin Qi. The surging waves of dark force enveloped the entire auction, with order delaying the monsters. The rate of casualties had indeed slowed down a lot. Both sides refused to back down and continued to resist the monsters' attacks. The dark force that filled the sky intertwined with the cause field. Under the saber light and sword shadow, the imposing manner was majestic like a rainbow. After Yiqing Luo and Qiao Yulu crossed hands for more than 10 rounds, her expression sunk as she took a few steps back. He didn't know if it was an illusion. Qiao Yulu's current state was that the more she fought, the braver she became. As though she didn't know pain and exhaustion. The current Qiao Yulu should still be in a human body and had not gone through the transformation of a corpse puppet. Chapter 37:13. She originally wanted to settle Qiao Yulu quickly. Then to help Azure Dragon settle that white-toothed monster. The array that was set up around the auction. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the dense Yin Qi coming from all directions. If they stayed in this array for a period of time, it would have a huge impact on them. There was a possibility that it might even weaken their powers, causing the Yin Qi to enter their bodies. In Nirvana Realm's Nether Palace's territory, when Yiqing Luo was sealed in the palace by the mastermind, her body was almost corroded by the Nether Palace's Yin Qi. If her willpower was weak, there was a possibility that she would become Nether Palace's puppet, controlled by them. What was even more unfortunate was that her body and mind were swallowed by the Yin Qi directly. Like Qiao Yulu. Obviously after the Yin Qi entered her body, she had lost her own rationality. But Qiao Yulu's attacks were getting fiercer and fiercer as she fought. It really made Yiqing Luo shocked. Somehow, she seemed to have forgotten something. Just like she felt that Qiao Yulu's attacks looked as though she was trying her best to kill her. But Yiqing Luo had an ominous premonition in her heart. As though Nether Palace had specially made use of Qiao Yulu to delay her time. Wait a minute. Delay time. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly widened. The expression on her face congealed. Her deep and enchanting eyes looked in the direction of the Azure Dragon in shock. Azure Dragon. Her throat was only able to spit out 2 words. But the scene in front of her silenced all her voices. Black qi filled the air, as though a thick fog had dyed the sky. That imitation white dragon monster, under Azure Dragon's tearing, its huge, dragon body, had already broken into pieces. But White Fang, who was supporting his broken body, emitted a dense black aura, mixed with the rolling dark clouds and lightning. Layers and layers of it entangled Azure Dragon. White Tooth's injuries were more serious. The surrounding black qi became thicker and deeper. It could be said the Azure Dragon was completely bound by this mass of black qi. This was White Tooth's motive. Yiqing Luo finally understood. Earlier when Azure Dragon obviously had the upper hand, why was her heart beating so fast? At the time, she did not realize this. Damn it! How dare they plot against Azure Dragon? Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were filled with a chilly killing intent. Powerful and thick profound energy surged out from his body. Her fingertips twitched. The devouring flame fan in his hand unleashed a powerful pressure. It kicked up a huge hurricane and headed straight for the Azure Dragon. Yiqing Luo. Xiao Yulu gave a cold harumph, as she once again entangled Yiqing Luo crazily. Yiqing Luo's entire mind was occupied by the green dragon. Without any hesitation, she waved her palm and shot out a stream of profound qi. The surrounding air waves surged and twisted. It formed an invisible wave that forced Xiao Yulu back. Yiqing Luo leapt up and charged towards the green dragon. Don't come any closer. The Azure Dragon's hoarse voice rang out in his mind. His voice was filled with suppressed pain. How could it not be painful? The Azure Dragon was the leader of the 4 great sacred beasts, a righteous sacred beast. He had just woken up not long ago, and because he had formed a blood contract with her, his strength had yet to recover. Furthermore, he was suppressed by the realm and the contract. While he was being entangled by White Tooth's evil qi. It was as if its soul and psychic power were being entangled by the evil energy. Father. Shiju couldn't sit still in the pet space. Chapter 37:14. Yiqing Luo knitted her brows tightly. She understood Azure Dragon's meaning. White Fang was specially used by Nether Palace to plot against Azure Dragon. It was intentionally used to bait her. If she went over rashly, that would be in line with Nether Palace's intentions. But to just leave Azure Dragon like that? How could she possibly do it? Yiqing Luo, do you despise me so much? How dare you be distracted? She heard Xiao Yulu's haunting voice ringing in her ears. Mixed with it was an attack filled with murderous intent. Yiqing Luo was feeling frustrated. Anger surged in her heart. There was also a vicious killing intent spreading in his chest. She frowned as her fingertips flipped. The glower flame fan in her hands opened up, drawing a biting cold wind blade arc, clashing against Xiao Yulu's attack. She pursed her lips, as her eyes gradually turned red. Bam bam bam. A deafening explosion resounded. As the profound energy clashed, the surrounding buildings were all blasted into pieces, as rubble flew everywhere. Xiao Yulu was struck right in the middle, as she flew backwards. Her soft body crashed heavily onto a building. Blood spurted out from her mouth. Xiao Yulu cried out miserably, as she fell onto the ground. Her internal organs seemed as though they were about to gush out from her mouth. This scene made Yiqing Luo subconsciously raise her hand and pressed against her own chest. The redness under her eyes deepened. She knew that this was the sign of evil qi entering the body. This evil qi was interfering with her emotions. The more easily angered, the more frustrated she was. The more evil qi could seep into one's heart. Yiqing Luo's eyes darkened, as she took a deep breath, suppressing the various emotions in her heart. Her figure flashed, as she speedily headed towards Azure Dragon's direction. Profound energy burst forth, as the glower flame fan on her fingertips was also burning with raging flames. The alluring red glow instantly covered that patch of black qi which was emitted from the white fang. Black and red intertwined. Like the black smoke, as cold blood seeped out. Azure Dragon didn't expect Yiqing Luo to rush over. An indescribable feeling arose in its heart. Yiqing Luo's eyes darkened, as her long and narrow eyes outlined a seductive cold arc, appearing extremely evil. Her black hair fluttered in the wind, and her red clothes fluttered. The profound energy in her entire body surged even more violently. His entire person was like a blood-colored firework, blooming bit by bit. Since you have signed a contract with me, you are my companion. How can I just watch my comrade fight alone? The girl's sonorous voice was firm and without the slightest hesitation. Then, the dazzling dark light around the young girl suddenly blossomed with a whoosh. In an instant, the azure dragon and White Fang were completely covered. Roar! White Fang roared in pain. Under the pain, his broken body kept twitching and twisting. Even the dense black aura was devoured by the waves of raging flames. This scene caused the expression of Sanyu, who was originally watching by the side, to darken. Yuji frowned. White Fang was in the first batch of battle pets. Her weapon shouldn't have been able to kill White Fang. She can even purify. White Fang's evil Chi. Yunu's eyes widened in shock. Yuhan hugged Yunu's slender waist tightly, as her expression was icy cold. This is different from the results of the investigation. We must start from her weapon. Wait. Yunu suddenly covered her mouth, as she cried out in shock, look at her weapon. Yuji and Yuhan immediately looked towards the direction of the voice. They saw the sky full of black fog, and under the red glow. Chapter 37:15. A flickering light aura flashed on the glowing flame fan. The surging profound energy lingered on the gourd flame fan. It caused her figure that was red like the blazing sun to seem like a pure and elegant poppy. Countless wind blades circled around the girl's body in a frenzy. Her weapon evolved. An evolvable artifact. Triple Nether exclaimed in astonishment. They had not expected that the glower flame fan in Yiqing Luo's hands could actually evolve at this juncture. The evolution of the weapon was equivalent to the evolution of the whole body. Even the mental energy within the gourd flame fan, which had been refined with the divine power of the netherworld, had evolved. Therefore, when dealing with a battle pet like White Fang, the evolved spirit would cover up White Fang's own evil aura. Yunu's beautiful eyes dimmed a little. She bit her red lips with a trace of resentment in her eyes. That slut, she was really damn lucky. At a time like this, her weapon could still evolve. However, Dark Girl's eyes gradually darkened. A faint black aura leaked out from between his brows. So what if it evolved? Today, they had made all the necessary preparations. He would definitely get rid of that slut here. On the other side, Yiqing Luo had also sensed the surging energy from the glower flame fan. She quickly dispersed the black fog that enveloped the azure dragon and slashed a wind blade at White Fang. White Fang roared and tried to break free. But Yiqing Luo's attacks were swift and fierce. White Fang was cut in half at the waist. After the dragon's head was separated from its body, it fell limply to the ground. The two parts of its huge body kept wriggling. However, he was unable to reconnect the two halves of his body. The black mist slowly dispersed. The azure dragon's slightly tired head was revealed. Yiqing Luo looked towards Qiao Yulu's direction. Qiao Yulu was lying on the spot where she had fallen, her body arched as if she was in so much pain that she couldn't stand up. She retracted her gaze and sped up to purify the evil aura around the azure dragon. Father! Suddenly, the clear voice of a child rang in his ears. Yiqing Luo felt a tightness in her chest. Shiju actually forcefully scurried out from the pet space. The palm-sized ball pounced towards the azure dragon. Shiju! Come back! Jin, don't come over. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly widened as she cried out anxiously. The azure dragon's voice rang out. But, it was too late for Yiqing Luo to stop him. Thick black fog covered Shiju's body in a split second. The dragon head that was originally lying on the ground and ceaselessly curled up suddenly leaped up and opened its mouth to swallow Shiju into its stomach. Shiju! Yiqing Luo's hand caught empty air. With a backhand punch, she heavily smashed White Fang's head. White Fang's head smashed onto the ground and bounced a few times. Spit out Shiju. Yiqing Luo stepped on by Ye's head as she shouted sternly. White Tooth played dead. Jean, Azure Dragon was flustered, and his eyes widened. The black mist around its body also surged wildly due to the change in its mood. The Azure Dragon immediately let out a muffled groan as it was entangled. Its whiskers shook, and its green dragon scales turned into streaks of light. It desperately tried to break free from the entanglement of the evil Yin energy. Yiqing Luo comforted the Azure Dragon in her heart. Her long and narrow eyes were suffused with an icy chill. She stepped hard on by Ye's head a few times. Yiqing Luo, if you don't listen to me obediently, the sword will not have eyes. Just at this moment, a soft voice was transmitted into Yiqing Luo's ears. There was an obvious sense of pride in that voice. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. Chapter 37:16. Among the black-robed men, the leader held a man in his hand and a sharp blade was pressed against the man's neck. The man's handsome face was steely green as his eyes were filled with anger. After meeting Yiqing Luo's gaze, he instantly turned guilty. Ah Xing. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted as she looked at the man who was restrained and called out softly. I'm sorry. Pei Xing apologized softly. This bunch of black-robed men were simply too sinister. Earlier when Shiju appeared and was swallowed by White Tooth, it made him place all his attention on Yiqing Luo. Momentarily, he neglected the approaching pharaoh his own mistake. He actually became all Luo's burden. Pei Xing did not feel good in his heart. Pharaoh he chose him as a tool to threaten all Luo. It was because he was too weak. If he was slightly stronger, the other party wouldn't have this chance. He wouldn't become all Luo's burden. The more he thought, the more guilty Pei Xing felt. TSK. Pharaoh he laughed coldly, Yiqing Luo, so what if your luck is good? Your only shortcoming is that you're too soft-hearted. I want to see if your life is more important or your little brother's life is more important. As Pharaoh he said that, he held Pei Xing's neck tightly. His face was filled with a complacent smile. Pei Xing's features contorted in pain as he tried to struggle but was trapped even tighter. Yiqing Luo's eyes darkened. Her slender fingers clenched into a fist as her brows overflowed with a chilly intent. Despicable. Pharaoh actually used Pei Xing to threaten her. Don't bother about me. Ah Luo, don't bother. Ah! Pei Xing screamed. Suddenly, Pharaoh he's blade grazed Pei Xing's neck. Pei Xing drew in a cold breath from the pain as he grimaced in pain, unable to open his mouth. Yiqing Luo's eyes darkened as she stared coldly at Pharaoh you'd better control your hand. If you hurt him again, you can try to see if you can still use him to threaten me. Pharaoh he's hand trembled as the expression on his face turned stiff. He suppressed the fear in his heart as he shouted at Yiqing Luo, stand aside obediently. Yiqing Luo's eyes were gloomy as she clenched her fingers tightly. His knuckles were pale from the strength of his grip. Roar! The Azure Dragon gradually revealed itself in the black fog. He opened his eyes wide and stared at White Fang's head, his dragon breath surging. At this moment, Yiqing Luo was in a dilemma. On the other side was Pei Xing. On one side was Shiju. If she didn't move, what would happen to Shiju after it was swallowed by White Fang? White Fang's body was filled with evil energy. Could Shiju's small body withstand it? If they moved, Pharaoh he would definitely not hesitate to take Pei Xing's life. Since she had promised to help Pei Xing, she would definitely help him to the end. If Pei Xing lost his life because of this, she would feel guilty. Also, the profounders from the various powers in the surroundings. They were all waiting for a chance to leave the auction. What to do? Yiqing Luo's complexion was pale and her tightly pursed pink lips were trembling slightly. Ah Luo, behind you. Suddenly, he heard Xiao Yinyan's panicked voice. There were a few figures who were rushing towards her at high speed. Yiqing Luo's brows twitched as she was just about to move. But Yu Nu laughed faintly, be obedient and don't move. If you alarm Pharaoh, he and his hand trembles. That would be bad. Chapter 37:17. Too light and indifferent sentences. It made Yiqing Luo's body, which wanted to dodge, suddenly froze. In the next instant, a ferocious gust of wind from a palm landed heavily on her back. Yiqing Luo only felt a wave of intense pain as her internal organs churned. Her body staggered a few steps forward. Blood spilled out from the corner of her mouth. She coughed violently as she covered her mouth. Ah Luo. Di Fu. Miss D. Miss Yi. The surrounding crowd cried out in shock. Ha ha ha. Yiqing Luo, you're just a so-so. While the crowd was worried, they were discussing in whispers. Xiao Yulu's voice was very obvious. Xiao Yulu looked complacently at Yiqing Luo, who was spitting out blood as she finally felt much better. What a ridiculous brotherly relationship. Since you want to use your life to exchange for that trash's life, then I shall fulfill your wish. Xiao Yulu sneered as her lips twitched. Following that, she flipped her palm and attacked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Her attack was extremely fast, totally not giving Yiqing Luo any chance to breathe. Yiqing Luo clutched her chest as it was in extreme pain. Even the slightest movement of his body would cause his internal organs to feel a sharp pain as if they were being torn apart. Xiao Yulu's attack made her face turn paler. She couldn't dodge. She couldn't resist. Was Yu Nu doing this on purpose, trying to torture her in this way? Seeing Xiao Yulu's attack getting closer, the worried growls and Yu Nu's complacent voice continued, none of you move. Whoever dares to stop me, this lad is dead. When Xiao Yinyan and the rest heard this, they wanted to go up to stop her, but they were all rooted to the ground as their eyes were filled with hesitation. F***K. I don't care if he dies or not. You bunch of trash, how dare you touch my people, I will skin you alive. Old Lai didn't have the patience to think so much. He was only concerned about Yiqing Luo alone. Gathering treasures and being amiable, that was on account of Yiqing Luo. Especially now, that bunch of people from secluded palace were old enemies. Seeing them, Old Lai had the intention to kill them. How could he possibly calm down? Old Lai's rage only lasted for a short moment. The biting cold profound energy which Xiao Yulu was brewing had already attacked towards Yiqing Luo's face. Pei Xing's pupils constricted. Suddenly, an extremely dazzling golden light erupted from his eyes. He stared at Yiqing Luo's direction. There seemed to be some kind of anger in his heart that kept surging. It was all because of him. It was all because of him. Ah Luo was threatened by others. Ah Luo was injured. Obviously, they wanted to use this method to torture Ah Luo. He could not stand by and watch Ah Luo get injured because of her. Ah Luo had sacrificed so much for him. He couldn't become Ah Luo's burden. You, all of you, deserve to die. From Pei Xing's throat came a roar that sounded like that of a trapped beast. His voice was hoarse, making it hard to hear what he was saying. Pharaoh Crane only felt that the suppressed man's aura suddenly rose. He didn't take it to heart. He just moved the sword closer to the man's neck. However, as soon as he moved, A bam sound was heard. The man's body suddenly exploded with a surge of raging energy. The thick, profound energy was like a spider web as it spread in the air. The majestic and powerful energy swept up a slight hurricane. Bam! Pharaoh Crane's body was suddenly repelled by the sudden burst of profound energy. Chapter 37:18. His entire body was emitting a dense, profound light. The surrounding black-robed men and Pharaoh he were all injured by that profound ray. What's going on? Pharaoh he's body was sent flying, and with a somersault in mid-air, he crashed onto a building. He clutched his chest as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Wasn't that lad without the strength to even truss a chicken? How did he suddenly become so powerful? It was really uncanny. The commotion over here made Three Nether's expression turn extremely cold and solemn. Ghost Girl's reaction was extremely fast. The moment she sensed the change in Pei Xing's aura, her cold and gloomy eyes were filled with an eerie chill. Following that, she was like an arrow leaving the bow as she charged towards Yiqing Luo's direction. And on Yiqing Luo's side, indeed. At the moment when Pei Xing resisted, Yiqing Luo swiftly flipped her hand as she clasped her wrist, which was attacking towards her face. Tightly, her 5 fingers clenched tightly. A "Kacha" sound was heard. Xiao Yulu's wrist broke in response. Yiqing Luo's speed was extremely fast. It was almost in a blink of an eye. After Pei Xing broke free from the restraint, her entire body started to revolve a majestic profound energy which contained an earth-shattering energy, stirring up the surrounding air as layers of clear and crystalline qi waves appeared, swiftly counterattacking towards Xiao Yulu. Xiao Yulu's face turned pale as black qi filled the space between her brows, as though her entire face was shrouded in black qi. It made her face, which was as beautiful as a flower and as beautiful as jade, look sinister and treacherous. Yiqing Luo's counterattack made Xiao Yulu's complacent expression freeze on her face. Without Pharaoh he making use of Pei Xing to balance Yiqing Luo, she was totally not Yiqing Luo's opponent, who was in a rage. Suddenly, Xiao Yulu's eyes flashed as she saw a certain spot. Her pupils, which were filled with black qi, suddenly surged with waves after waves of turbulent evil qi. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes suddenly grew longer as though she had reacted to something. She swiftly turned sideways. But no matter how fast her reaction was, she was still a step too late. That sinister sneer on Ghost Girl's face was already nearing. At the instance when she turned sideways, Xiao Yulu also received Yunu's signal and raised her hand to attack Yiqing Luo. One at the front and one at the back, the 2 sides attacked from both sides. Yiqing Luo had nowhere to hide. Yunu's red lips curled into a perfect arc as she gave a tender smile. Yiqing Luo, you're still defeated in my hands after all. Her voice was soft and gentle. However, his attacks were so swift and fierce that it caused people's hearts to tremble. An earth-shattering momentum exploded in the air. Yiqing Luo only felt a bone-piercing chill rising from her spine. Her mind worked quickly. It was too late for him to use his footwork to escape. All she could do was, he dodged one attack and endured the other. If she had to choose, she would definitely choose to avoid Yunu's attack. However, she had just been hit by Xiao Yulu's palm wind, and her internal organs were still in a damaged state. If he took another palm strike, I'm afraid her 5 viscera and 6 bowels would rupture. Both of them were as fast as lightning, totally not giving Yiqing Luo any time to think. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. She pursed her lips tightly and could only choose the most beneficial method for herself. Old man Tsang, protect my heart. Yiqing Luo said this in her heart. Her body had already swiftly turned towards Yunu, meeting against Yunu's attack. Yiqing Luo's back was exposed in front of Xiao Yulu. Xiao Yulu's eyes flashed past a gloomy smile. But just as Xiao Yulu used all her strength to take Yiqing Luo's life, suddenly, a gust of gloomy cold wind fluttered and enveloped her palm. Chapter 37:19. No. It wasn't just a surge of energy. Xiao Yulu sensed in horror that when the cold wind blew over, and a majestic and vigorous energy was rapidly approaching. Violent howling. Xiao Yulu could even see the entrance to hell opening up towards her. No. She didn't want to die. Xiao Yulu was terrified. She wanted to retract her hands which had already attacked. However, the coldness seemed to have frozen her hands and body, making her unable to move at all. At this moment, Xiao Yulu finally understood earlier, Yiqing Luo knew that danger was approaching. But she could only stand on the spot, passively waiting for the pain to descend. The only difference was Yiqing Luo was being coerced, standing there to suffer without any resistance. Whereas she wanted to hide, but had no strength to hide. A miserable shriek came out from Xiao Yulu's mouth. Xiao Yulu's body suddenly flew backwards, crashing heavily onto the ground. She could even hear the sound of her bones breaking when her body crashed onto the ground. Xiao Yulu's entire face was twisted. Her wide-opened eyes were filled with unconcealable fear. Xiao Yulu was overwhelmed with shock. But someone's heart skipped a beat, as various emotions of sweetness and astonishment spread in her heart. After asking Old Man Song to protect her heart meridians, Yiqing Luo originally wanted to forcefully receive Xiao Yulu's attack. However, at the most critical moment, she only felt her waist suddenly tightened. Tightly. A strong and powerful force tightly hugged her waist. Both her feet were in the air, as she was brought into a warm embrace. The elegant sandalwood fragrance seeped into her nostrils. It instantly soothed the restlessness and uneasiness in her heart. Yiqing Luo's heart was instantly lifted. Even her charming eyes were slightly opened in disbelief. It's you. She heard Ghost Girl's panicked voice. Following that was the sound of Ghost Girl escaping in the direction of the other two nethers. Yiqing Luo was buried in that person's embrace, so she couldn't see the situation. But she could clearly hear the sound of the air ripple in the air. The sound of Ghost Girl escaping had just started, when it suddenly stopped. As though she was intercepted in the middle. Indeed, at the next instant, Yiqing Luo heard a painful moan. Yiqing Luo snuggled into that man's arms as she popped out her little head. Ghost Girl was suspended in the air, kicking her legs repeatedly. Her body and neck were tightly bound by an invisible force. Yunu's face turned pale as she opened her mouth and eyes wide, desperately looking towards Yiqing Luo's direction, hoping to plead for leniency. Meanwhile, a ray of purple profound light shot out from Dark Girl's neck. As the purple light circulated, it enveloped the azure dragon. In an instant, the black fog around the azure dragon dissipated. Then, the purple profound light shot towards the half of the head that had swallowed Shiju. Purple light flashed. Shiju's small body was faintly discernible. After the azure dragon broke free, it immediately rushed towards White Fang's severed head. The dragon eyes nervously stared at the faintly discernible Shiju. Roar! Shiju's small voice sounded normal and didn't seem to be injured. Yiqing Luo's suspenseful heart was finally suppressed. Her long, curly eyelashes fluttered. Her fingers, which were pressed on the chest of the person who was hugging her, unconsciously curled up. That person's chest was boiling hot and the rhythmic feeling of his heartbeat was like a drum, beating heavily on her palm. Chapter 37:20. Between her brows, there was a burning sense of warmth and tenderness. She seemed to be confirming something, but also seemed to be in a dream. Cautiously, he raised his eyes and looked at that person's face, under the sky full of flying sand and blood. The man's peerlessly handsome face was still as outstanding as ever. His purple robe billowed, his black hair scattered on his shoulders. The dancing hurricane floated his black hair. The handsome face that could almost captivate one's soul was reflected in the young girl's pupils at close range. The man's eyes were filled with a smile. His peach blossom eyes were full of pampering for the young girl. Their eyes met. As if even the air was seeping with sweetness. Yiqing Luo's pupils, under the man's pampering gaze, dilated little by little. Her eyelashes were gradually stained with moisture. Her beautiful face was like a peach blossom in March, floating on a cloud. Ah, Xian! The young girl's soft voice was choked with emotion. Her arms tightly wrapped around the man's neck. Smelling the man's scent. Feeling the man's warmth. As if this was the only way to confirm that he had really appeared in front of her. Not in the spiritual state. Not an illusion. But the real him. The man's arms wrapped around her slender waist, his thin lips slightly hooked, gently falling on her hair. A low and magnetic voice came out of his mouth, "Yes, it's me." Ah, Xian. Yiqing Luo's arms tightened, completely bringing her delicate body into his arms. She had never thought that Dmo Xian would actually appear in Without Embroiling City. And appear in front of her. Obviously, when they were in the Spirit Devourer formation, his spirit body had been affected. They had agreed that she would go to Without Shadow City to look for him. Why did he come to Without Shadow City alone? Then his body. Could it take it? This thought made Yiqing Luo's heart clench. She suddenly pulled the distance between the two of them and looked up at him carefully. Ah, Xian, you. Are you all right? The man's pampering gaze seemed to be able to squeeze water out of it. Just a glance. Her heart softened and melted. He stared at her face, smiled, and shook his head. Don't worry, you value my body so much, how can I let you worry? Yiqing Luo looked at him without blinking. She seemed to want to see it in his eyes. He wanted to see if his words were true or false. It was just that he was watching and watching. Under the man's gentle smiling gaze. That soft spot in Yiqing Luo's heart felt as though it had been hit hard by something. Tears welled up in the corner of her eyes. Don't cry. His voice was gentle, and he sounded a little panicked. His broad and warm fingers covered the corners of her eyes. His slender fingers wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes. He comforted her in a low voice, I'm really fine. Don't cry. My heart hurts when I see you cry. It was better if the man didn't speak. As soon as he spoke, Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as tears started to flow down uncontrollably. She suddenly plunged into his arms, grabbed his clothes, and said with a sobbing voice, Fool. Why did he have to force himself? How can I not know about your body's condition? Stay in Shadow City and recuperate your body, and wait for me to look for you, all right? She choked with sobs as her tears flowed non-stop. Why are you still acting tough in front of me? Don't cry. The man's voice became even softer. Hot lips replaced the fingers, fell on her eyes. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.